Alrighty. What's up, everybody? It's Mr. Keizo back at it again with another reaction video. Modern day debate just dropped. Not so erudite versus Rachel Wilson. Feminism debate. So, want to watch this? I just started a new character, my druid, because I just got tired of playing the witch or whatever. So, we're starting off new debate, new character. You know, good stuff. Let's get into it.
For our debate, is feminism doing more good or more harm? I'm going to start by introducing Rachel, as she will go first. Rachel Wilson is an author and cultural commentator whose fearless research challenges conventional narratives about feminism, women, and family. Please join me in welcoming Rachel Wilson.
Welcome, Rachel Wilson.
And on your left, we are pleased to welcome Kyla, also known as Not So Erudite. She is a thoughtful commentator who brings psychology, social science, and careful analysis to debates about gender and culture. Please join me in welcoming Not So Erudite.
Dude, I saw her ratio Andrew Wilson like badly. I don't know how her reply got like 120,000 likes.
All right, I am setting the timer for 5 minutes. One last thank you to
There's a lot of people in that crowd.
our
Wow.
sponsor, Yonaguni International Cuisine. Check them out in the description box below. And with that, I have the timer set for you, Rachel. The floor is all yours for 5 minutes.
James, Kyla said she's okay with 7 minutes. I probably won't need the full 7, but just thought I would let you know that. I'm probably just going to go a pinch over 5.
You got it.
Okay. All right, so is feminism doing more harm than good? I'm going to say, of course, that I think it's doing more harm.
Yeah, I mean, she wrote a whole book on why
take a
feminism
brief
is bad.
review of what we've gotten so far from feminism and its 6 pillars of propaganda. So feminism inverted the Western social order in roughly 1 century through its 6 primary pillars and a 7th that I'm going to introduce to you today. We've got sexual liberation, abortion, vilification of men, no-fault divorce, demonization of tradition, and either rejection or reinvention of Christianity.
Oh, wow.
Tonight, I'm going to focus on the measurable results of these pillars and introduce the 7th, what I call the she-economy. So if we look at family structure collapse since feminism became the dominant political ethos across the entire West, we've got 40% of children in the United States no longer living with both married biological parents.
Jeez.
In 1945, that number was only 10%.
Bruh.
Children living without both married biological parents face more than 8 times higher risk of endangerment, standard maltreatment, which is a fancy term for all types of abuse. We have a fatherless epidemic. So roughly 1/3 of American children live without their biological father. That's a 3-fold increase over the historical norm.
Yeah,
they account for 90% of homeless kids, 85% of kids with behavioral disorders, 70% of kids
90% of homeless children without fathers?
71% of adolescents in substance abuse treatment centers.
Oh my gosh.
Let's look at unmarried births and the welfare trap. In the United States, only about 5% of kids were born to unmarried mothers in 1960. At present, that number is 41%. At the same time, we've gone from $50 billion a year in annual welfare spending in 1950 to now $700 billion per year.
That's crazy.
That's a 14-fold increase after you adjust for inflation.
How many?
By
What's
2010,
the population
90%
increase
of all cash welfare
comparison?
payments and half of all food assistance went to single mothers.
I guess Not So Erudite's going to attack these statistics with like nuance. Like, hey, you're saying all these things, but there's a whole bunch of different factors that wouldn't contribute to wouldn't be like feminism per se. But I think Not So Erudite has claimed that she's not like, she hasn't promoted that she's like a 2nd wave or 3rd wave feminist. She said she's like a 4th wave, that she's like against woke stuff, but she still likes being like a girl boss or whatever. From what I remember from her previous debates with others, but I could be wrong. So that's just like from what I remember, from what I've watched in the past.
Other households. In 1940, only 6% of kids under age 6 had mothers working full-time outside the home. Today, that number is 58%.
Jeez.
So you guys have probably heard all of those kinds of stats from me a lot in the past, but let's talk about the she economy, which is the 7th pillar. Okay. And this is really consistent across all Western nations, regardless of what type of systems they have. As soon as feminism is introduced, Not only does it transform the social order, it
Okay.
radically transformed Western economies, shifting them from production-based systems that favor long-term stability into debt-driven consumer economies that prioritize
Mama
short-term
lagging.
gains. Proponents claim that the surge in female labor force participation since the 70s has been good because it
Oh,
expanded the GDP and created two-income households.
Whoa.
That view is incomplete. With the election cycle coming up, affordability, housing shortages, inflation, and labor shortages are going to be talked about a lot, so this is a good moment to discuss this. So who actually builds the economy? When we look at GDP across Western nations, men contribute about 60% of the GDP
understand now.
and women contribute about 40%. But if you look per capita, men generate 36% more GDP per capita than women do. Women own 39% of U.S. businesses
Jeez.
now, but they only generate 6.2% of total business revenue.
Brother. What?
Keep that one up here. It's very important. It basically comes out that about 22% of all women's efforts in the economy are either directly or indirectly subsidized by men.
Dang, that's tough.
Critical systems remain dominated by men. First world living standards that allow feminism rest on complex physical systems that largely cannot or will not be staffed by women. Things like electrical grid maintenance, water treatment, food production. And a society can survive a temporary shortage of marketing ladies and HR women and kindergarten teachers, but it cannot survive a shortage of power grid technicians or water treatment engineers. Male labor force participation
point.
has fallen to a historic low of 69.5%.
Jeez.
So that's almost 1 in 3 men are out of the workforce right now. So what's the labor force cost of abortion? One of the main things that feminists care about. They don't care if they have every other right. They care about abortion. It's their main measure of women's freedom. We've had 63 million abortions in the U.S. alone since Roe v. Wade.
That's 60
If
million
those
children dead.
had survived and joined the workforce today, we would have an additional 45 million workers in the U.S. economy. We wouldn't
my
have to import
gosh.
them from other nations. The cost of abortion is 425 times larger than the earnings that the mothers would have lost by carrying the children to term. So yes, women make a little bit more when they don't have kids, but it's not even close to what you'd get if they had children who grew up and joined the workforce.
My goodness.
So women's achievements in the economy are subsidized. Men pay roughly 60 to 75% of income taxes. Progressive tax codes mean the top earners, predominantly male, fund the vast majority of public infrastructure, universities, and social programs. Women get 60% of all higher education dollars because they are the majority of students on campus now. But if you look at fiscal return on that investment, governments get most of their money back from this smaller pool of male laborers, mostly because they make more money and they work more hours. So it's like a structural transfer where public services, education, and grants that enable women to enter and remain in the workforce are funded disproportionately by male tax dollars. So in conclusion, the irony is that feminism has given us broken homes, fatherless children, rising mental illness, demographic decline, and a generation in which nearly a third of Gen Z was aborted before they could ever be born. The welfare state and the she economy
That's not
that
good.
prop up this illusion of strong, independent women will collapse precisely because the same policies that empower women into lower productivity roles have starved the next generation of highly skilled, critical male workers that complex first world systems demand.
Dang.
Feminism has done more harm than good, and the data is not subtle.
Thank you very
True.
much for that opening from Rachel Wilson.
That's tough. That's tough.
I've got the timer set for you, not so erudite. That was 6 minutes and 45 seconds. The floor is all yours. We'll start it on your first word.
Sure. Feminism, I'm sure you guys won't be surprised by what I say, has done more good than harm. At its core, feminism is the extension of a simple moral principle. Women are full human beings entitled to the same basic dignity, liberty, legal protection, and opportunity as men. That principle is not foreign to the American tradition. This nation was built on lofty ideas rooted in Christian theology, in Roman law and Greek
Okay, I was waiting for her
philosophy.
to take
From those
notes.
traditions came our understanding of human dignity, citizenship, justice, and government under law. Feminism belongs within that inheritance.
Didn't know I
Once a
could sprint this
society
whole time?
accepts that
Really?
people possess inherent worth and that the law should protect their liberty, the question of women's rights becomes unavoidable. That is why feminism is necessary. In a nation committed to freedom, some form of feminism is also inevitable. Women did not begin asking for rights because a university, foundation, or political organization manufactured their dissatisfaction. They encountered the principles their civilization already possessed and asked for those principles to apply to them as well. At the most fundamental, the feminism I am defending is the empowerment of women and the promotion of femininity as something worthy of respect and social value. It does not require women to live in one approved way. It asks that women possess enough security and authority to build lives that reflect their talents, obligations, and convictions. It also insists.
Is this word
that-
slop? Would this be considered word slop? Like, these are just, I don't know. But this just is, yeah, we just want this, this, and this, and this. But, like, what are the effects of those wants? Like, oh, yeah, we just want to be treated equal. Yeah, sure, whatever. What does that look like in the workplace? What does that look like economically? Like, what does this all look like? But maybe she'll explain it.
That motherhood, care, and traditionally feminine contributions should not be dismissed as a lesser form of human achievement. There is an important difference between protection and dependence. A woman whose security rests entirely upon the goodwill of a father or husband may be safe when that man is good. But human beings are fallible, as we all know. Men can be cruel, negligent, absent, or irresponsible. A legal system should not assume that every woman will always have a benevolent man standing between her and disaster. The ability to own property, retain earnings, receive an education, participate in government, and leave a dangerous marriage are not indulgences. They are safeguards against the ordinary failures of human character.
This is not okay, but I think Rachel would agree with all that stuff. Women should be allowed to own property. I don't know, she probably should. I think Rachel's probably not gonna be like, yeah, you shouldn't be in government. Based. 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 But yeah, I feel like Rachel will agree
Feminism
with all
did
this.
not invent abuse. It didn't invent abandonment. It did not create unhappy marriages.
But it gave them-
women great.
But it gave them empowerment to kill their children, brother. What do you say? Why? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Don't care.
Greater power to survive circumstances that already existed. Nor did feminism suddenly cause women to begin working. Women have always worked. I'm sure Rachel will probably agree with me on this. Their labor took place on farms, inside family businesses, in factories, and within the home. Poor women rarely had the luxury of avoiding work altogether. The major transformation was not simply that women entered the workforce, it was that more women could prepare for sustained careers. Education became an investment in a future rather than an accomplishment expected to end at marriage. Women could develop the talents that earlier societies often ignored or confined in a very narrow range of uses. Society gained enormously from that change. Women became doctors, scientists, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and public officials in far greater numbers. Their intelligence could serve institutions beyond the household without ceasing to benefit their families or communities. None of this means that every feminist has been smart or wise. Some feminists have treated motherhood as a burden rather than a vocation. Others have shown hostility towards marriage, religion, men, or femininity itself. I have no interest in defending every slogan produced under the feminist label. A movement that has existed for generations includes millions of
Why is
people who will
so
contain
zoomed in?
foolishness alongside those people. But that is not the question before us. The question is whether the broad historical movement towards women empowerment, legal equality, education, and political participation has produced more good than harm. I believe the answer is clearly yes. The anti-feminist case often gathers every modern social problem and places it at feminism's feet. Divorce, failing fertility, loneliness, and declining happiness are treated as the predictable cost of women's freedom. That explanation is far too simple. The same period contained enormous economic and technological upheaval. Industrialization alone altered the household entirely. Urbanization weakened older community structures. Contraception changed family planning. Housing became more expensive, and the economy shifted away from manufacturing, while globalization and secularization changed the character of public face. Feminism participated in the modern transformation, but it did not independently cause everything that follows it. The fact that two developments occurred at the same time does not establish that one produced the other. We should consider the societies people most consistently choose to live in. The world's most
Okay, so she's like, feminism good, despite bad things happen from feminism, basically. I don't know, 60 million dead kids is pretty bad, bro. I don't know how you, I don't, yeah. Oh, I mean, economy good, 60 million kids dead, so feminism good? I don't think so.
Prosperous, desirable
I guess it
nations
just depends on your
generally
worldview.
possess strong legal institutions, broad access to education, political liberty, and substantial equality between men and women. It would be foolish to claim that feminism alone created their prosperity. It would be equally foolish to regard the relationship as meaningless.
Oh my gosh,
the
I'm
nations
dead.
most committed to human
Jeez.
development tend to extend freedom and opportunity to women because both commitments arise from the same conviction. Human potential should be cultivated rather than needlessly suppressed.
Okay. Like, what is
This
that?
is part of the
feel like this is
triumphant
word
nature
slop.
of the human spirit. People want to learn and contribute. They want to build meaningful lives that they and their loved ones can live in. A society flourishes when it gives that spirit room to breathe. Great nations do not become great by permanently limiting half of their population. They become great by allowing talent and moral agency to serve the common good wherever they are found. Feminism, therefore, belongs with the broader American tradition of civil rights and equal protection. It reflects the belief that inherited hierarchy alone cannot justify domination. Choice matters because virtue requires agency. The ability to act otherwise. Obedience may reflect goodness, but it may also just reflect powerlessness. We cannot know which one it is when coercion has already decided the matter.
What?
The feminism I am defending tonight is not the claim that every difference between men and women is discrimination. It is the claim that women should be empowered and that femininity itself should not be treated as inferior, and that being female should not disqualify someone from full participation in society. That principle has corrected real injustices. It has made women less vulnerable
15
to abuse.
seconds.
And it did, I'll jump ahead. I actually want to extend, Rachel, an invitation. I'm curious if you're open to this, and you can say no. I think you're one of the strongest anti-feminist debaters that is working today. I think I'm also probably one of the strongest defenders of feminism, or hope you would grant me the same thing. We're both intelligent women who have considered and examined many of the same questions, and we've reached radically different conclusions, and I want to understand why. I do not want this to become only a contest of statistics and whatnot, and I don't want to get rid of the debate. However, I'd like to approach the conversation in a feminine way.
In a feminine
I
We're
wanna-
way.
at time.
Sure.
Well,
And
you,
not
if you want, I
bratty.
can give you a little, if you have a second sentence.
It's like two
Rachel
sentences.
says yes. Go ahead.
By that, I would like to approach it in a feminine way. And by that, I don't mean that I want Rachel and I to sit here and paint our nails and talk about our feelings. Don't worry, okay? You'll get your show, okay? However, I mean treating the feelings beneath, the femininity, the things that drive us beneath, as meaningful evidence for what we're trying to protect. Because Rachel, you and I both want women to flourish. We genuinely do. And that, to me, seems like the proper place to begin.
Thank you very much for that.
Wow,
opening
thank you very
statement.
much.
That's all right.
I'm just kidding.
With that,
Whoa,
we'll
chill.
jump into the open dialogue. We'll let this be as
Oh my gosh, we're already jumping into. We're not even doing rebuttals. What the? Okay, base.
organic as you guys would like. So we'll let you take it from here. I'll only jump in if it gets really crazy.
Okay, so I'm actually very curious about your relationship to feminism. Like, what got you interested in feminism, and specifically,
Did you not read her
concerns
book?
about
Bro, I didn't read it. I'm just asking. I'm not preparing for a debate, so I don't need to read the opponent's material. Usually when you're debating an opponent, you research them and you learn their arguments and you figure that out. I don't know. Maybe you should have read her book, The Occult Feminism, but whatever.
feminism and its impacts on society?
That's just my two
personally
cents.
in your life or ideologically.
Well, that was a beautiful opening, and I appreciate all the sentiments therein, but none of this addresses the fact that we are about to fall off a demographic cliff that will make all of these beautiful, lofty sentiments mean absolutely nothing.
Based.
Because as you addressed in your opening, it's not a coincidence that feminism did not exist until the industrial and technological revolutions. You need technology and first world living standards to have this idea that we can just push women into the workforce. Everyone can follow their dreams and do what their heart tells them to do, and everybody should have choices and all that sort of thing. But if we don't have enough men to run this first world standard of living, we will be like the only places in the world that are still below replacement birth rates, which would be like Africa, Pakistan. That's where we're going to be if we don't solve the demographic problem. So as much as I would love to talk about how we feel and what got us into this, I'm concerned by the fact that I like air conditioning. I live in Texas, okay? I like power, I like infrastructure, and we won't have that if women don't start producing the next generation of workers who can maintain the standard that allows women to even think about whether they want to have babies or become doctors.
Okay, yeah, if you want to just do the boys' way, we can just do the boys' way.
I don't
What's
think it's
the boys'
inherently
way?
male to have concerns about the rational,
It's a
real-world
joke. It's a joke,
implications
Rachel.
of
It's
what's
okay.
happening with feminism.
It's a joke.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah, I don't...
Okay, so let's maybe get into the starting point then for you. So at what point, what's the period you think is most prolific for feminism really changing the she economy that you described? Is there a window of time?
Would be
60?
the 1970s.
What
when-
happened in the
70s.
1970s?
I'm glad you asked.
Cultural impact of
You're
secularization.
so welcome. We're
What
tag teaming
happened
this, really.
in the 70s was we had just been through the Vietnam War, which was very unpopular and extremely expensive, and
the
the
rise of
U.S. Treasury
hippies.
needed more income tax coming in. And this was at the exact same time that the Rockefellers and the Fords created gender studies. They passed Title IX and started handing out college scholarships and funding for women to go to college like candy. And we saw over 20% increase in females in the workforce just in that decade alone. By the 90s, women were on par with men. And what happened at the same time as that is Roe v. Wade and the birth control pill. So women started
And
only
the gold
having-
standard getting removed. That one's kind of important, too.
What's that?
Well, the gold standard got removed as well.
From the Fed?
Sure. I don't
Well,
think
that's economically super important, right?
it's important, but
What
I
do you
don't
mean
think
it's important? We fundamentally changed our
But-
relationship from the gold standard, the petrodollar, under Nixon in
but
1971.
that's not why women joined the economy.
But
That's
that
not why
might
women
explain economic
started-
changes, no?
No, it doesn't.
The gold standard.
Because what you're not understanding is it's about the birth rate. It's not that women working is a problem if they were still having 2.2 or 2.5 babies per woman. But when you tell women, hey, spend all your fertile years going to college and starting a career and don't even think about settling down and having kids until you're 31, which is the average age that a woman is having her first child now,
Yikes.
that's a serious problem. And we have historical examples of countries who've gone through this. Russia is a great one. They
Okay.
made abortion legal and paid for in state hospitals under Lenin. And it was so bad, like the demographic cliff was so bad for Russia that by the time Stalin came to power, he had to roll all of that back. But because they were communists, they wanted to push women into the workforce. You
Yeah,
need
but they killed
workers
100
to
million
have
people.
Communism. Women needed to be working. And they tried to do women workers and pronatalism at the same time. It did not work. They've
Well,
never recovered
all
their
economies
birth
need
rate.
workers, right? The most important piece of basically capital investment
Sure.
is human
Which is
human
why
capital.
you could also look at South Korea, which is a very capitalist Western style economy, but has also been taken over by feminism, and they have 0.7 births per woman right now.
Yikes.
There's not going to be a South Korea in the next 20 or 30 years if they don't turn it around.
I'm curious, what's the number one correlate to declining birth rates in a nation?
Women's access to higher education.
Correct. Yes, women's access. It's actually everyone's access to higher education. So I'm curious, would you consider Saudi Arabia particularly feminist?
No, they're Muslim.
Not particularly feminist.
Qatar?
No. But no.
Okay, so the Gulf states also have declining birth rates, but feminism isn't causing that. What's
They-
Yeah,
happening
there's
there?
secular-
Because
Civilization
they've
plus
started.
Islam.
They've started
Saudi Arabia, famous
Yes.
for feminizing. Qatar, famous for feminizing.
They
They're
have started
secularizing.
letting women work. They've started allowing things like birth
Their
control.
birth rate's
It's
been
more
declining
subtle.
for a long time. Actually, it's below replacement now.
Yes, everybody in first world economies where there's urbanization, industrialization, as I explained, that's what enables feminism.
So isn't
Crap,
it
I stole my boots.
urbanization that we're
Bye-bye.
blaming here? Because I feel like there's an
not
interesting
until
thing.
you push women into the workforce and they stop having kids. Again, if women were working as nurses and still having 2.5 kids per woman, I would have no problem with it. But nothing you're addressing tells me what we're going to do about this.
Well, nothing you're pointing
how is
to
your-
says it all falls at the feet of feminism, right? What you're pointing
Why
to
did
right
the women
now,
stop having babies?
because of modernization through increased education. Saudi
Yeah,
Arabia,
because they're-
I'm so sorry. As much as you might want to insist Saudi Arabia is feminist, it's certainly not. In fact, do you know why women in Saudi Arabia are pushed into education? It increases their dowry value. That's why. Because it's like
That
the
sounds like an Islam problem.
Well, Victoria, England did this as well, where essentially they view proof of education as good genetic stock, so it makes that wife a more valuable woman. So
Right,
I
but
don't know what's
nobody had a
feminist
birth
about
rate
that.
crisis in Victorian
Well,
England.
the thing that you have to disentangle
That's
here
true.
is why is Saudi Arabia having the same problems that you're falling at the feet of feminism? And I'm saying it looks more like modernization might be the problem here. And Saudi Arabia certainly has both modernization, but it certainly doesn't have feminism. So you're going to have to
The
answer the Qatar Gulf
CDC and the
problem.
United Nations both say that the main correlate for declining birth rates
Is-
is sending women to college and sending them to work.
I didn't
And
disagree with that.
As a mother
That's just not
of 5,
feminism.
As a mother
necessarily.
of
How is
5,
it not a
you
factor of
cannot
feminism?
have more than maybe one child and work full time because you have to outsource motherhood to daycare, which
Why?
is expensive. What do you mean why?
Why do we have the runaway cost issues in America?
Runaway
What?
what?
Cost issues in America.
It's not runaway
Cost
cost
of
issues. It's the
daycare?
fact that
It's
Not
about the
affordable
time
right
you
now?
get.
It's
you
tougher.
can't make daycare cheap enough for it to offset the cost of a woman working full time. That's math. How are you
typically
going
you-
to make daycare cheap enough that a
Yeah.
woman can have 5 babies and work a full time job? And why would you want that?
Yeah.
Well, the
Why
issue-
don't we want mothers? Any mothers here love having to send their kids to be raised by someone else all day? Do you
well,
guys
the question
like that?
again, you can narrativize, but the question
That's
I'm
not
actually trying to
narrativize.
pose you and get an
That's-
answer to is what changed in the 70s, as you claim, where women started becoming dual income earners? What changed in families? What was going on? And you were like,
mass-
the gold standard.
Are you asking
that doesn't
what?
matter.
No, I'm telling you exactly what happened, and this is not me. This is the U.S. Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Commerce. All the sources in my slides say
Yeah.
that in the 70s, the reason was because we had a huge income tax deficit because of the Vietnam War. At the same time that they had passed birth control legislation making it legal.
So the debate is basically just not so erudite, being like, it's not actually feminism. It's just because she's going to use Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries as an example of, hey, so this is the thing you're complaining about in the West, but this is also happening in these Middle Eastern countries. So it's actually not feminism because they're not feminist. And I would say it's the ball rolling, starting to roll, what's it called? The snowflake becoming the avalanche of feminism as well as modernity, as well as secularization of these countries beginning their nosedive into self-destruction because of these, I would say 3 things, but feminism is a definite major factor that contributes to a lot of the downfalls of society because it just promotes girl boss. It's, oh, girl, do your thing. Go kill your babies. Go work your job. You don't need no man. Make that money. And then they're 30 and they're like, all right, yeah, now you can settle down, have kids. But bro, you have no egg. No egg. Insert empty egg carton meme. You have no eggs. And your child, the longer it takes for you to have children, the longer you put off having children, the more the increase you have of having birth defects with your child. And nowadays, people are like, oh, my child has birth defect, just kill them and make another one. Or we'll use IVF, or we'll use genetic modification. But, like, that's still bad. Also, a third of my generation's dead. And plus, I do have 2 kids. And me and my wife had our first kid. And he's turning 2 this year. So I'm 23. Yeah, 23, because we had him in 2024. So we were 23 when we had our first kid, and then we had another kid the next year in 2025. So we're under 30 with 2 kids, and we are gonna probably have another one next year. We took a year off, so we took a year off having one, so we haven't had one in 2026, and we're gonna have one in 2027. So, and we both work full time, but we have a pretty special case we have family friends who come and watch our kids because we trust them, and we've built trust over the years, and it's not that expensive. But still, daycare is still a hefty price because I don't want to send my kids to a daycare. I want to have my kids being watched by people I trust at my own home. So thank God has really blessed us with the ability to do that. Not everyone has that ability. Other people have to go drop their kids off at daycare, and I just can't. I've seen too many. It's anecdotal evidence, but I've just seen too many videos of daycare workers just beating kids. I'm like, no, I would crash out and air out that whole place. I would walk them down. I would literally walk every single daycare worker down. If you the kid who you touch my child, I'm literally, the hollow points are coming out. And then you watch another person put their hands on my kid and you don't do anything about it, you don't say anything about it, the hollow points are still coming out, and they're, you're getting cooked. I'm sorry. The hollow points, they're going to start talking. All right? The combo will be had, and it will end. So, I'm just saying. Daycare, maybe, I don't know. Because I don't think the price of daycare is the thing that matters. I think mothers being able to stay at home and raise their kids is good. So, the salaries of men and inflation also, that's another economic factor. You have to have a 2-parent income household to basically make a living wage. So that's another thing that's pretty tough nowadays. As a young married couple, I understand the struggle, and I agree.
Legal, and not only that, making it free and cheap and socially acceptable. We had Roe v. Wade, now everybody can get an abortion, and at the same time, you start pushing through the culture through a massive propaganda campaign, through things like, remember the Stepford Wives movies, remember the Mary Tyler Moore show? The 70s were just saturated with girl boss empowerment stuff. And I was born in 1980 with She-Ra and Madonna and, telling women that motherhood is a ball and chain, that the smart girls go to college and have their own money and they don't need a man. So you've got this cultural propaganda campaign.
But I don't know if that's a straw man to argue against.
Which is why it's so
erudite,
expensive,
because
by the
she's
way.
not promoting that. I don't know.
And then you've got birth control and abortion. Okay. So the trend becomes, go get your bag, go get your career. Men are icky and bad. They're going to abuse you. Children are a ball and chain that are going to hold you back. You need to go to work.
Sure.
And that's what women do. They
still haven't gotten an answer to the Gulf states. Seems like that one is just
still haven't gotten an answer to how you're going to do feminism with no more babies.
Rachel, you have to let me talk for us to have a conversation, right? I'm letting you speak. Give me some space to speak as well, right? So let's talk a little bit about the 70s.
Go ahead, Kyla.
If you want Rachel to just monologue, I can just sit here if you want. But if you want the debate and show, I have to participate too. So let's talk a little bit about the 70s. So the 70s is where, what did you say, what percentage increase?
It was something over 20%.
Until 20%, so 70s to what? What was the 20% point? Was it the 90s, 2000s?
No, just in the 70s alone, I believe it went up. Female labor force participation went way up in the 70s. It was the biggest jump, and then it continued in the 80s and 90s, and now we have about equal numbers.
So I'm going to show you a beautiful thing that we can do in the world, okay? This is a graph. This is a very, very wonderful graph that makes your point look true. This is your point, okay? So we've got 1975, we've got 39%. It's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, okay? You're going to love it. And by 1990s, we have that almost 20% jump to 58%. And look how steep that looks. Very spooky, spooky graph. The issue with cherry-picked data is that if you zoom out and include all data that's relevant, suddenly spooky lines don't look so spooky. In the 70s, nothing magically happened at all, actually. We had a consistent trend of women since the 1950s going into workplace, particularly married women, because unmarried women always participate in the workforce. Yes. If you actually want a spooky graph with a big jump, the major points when women entered the workforce at astronomical numbers, was a 10% leap in like 4 years, is this graph. It was World War II.
Two, yeah.
This is the
Yeah, when all the
only
men got
notable
sent off
moment.
to
If you'll
war.
Notice on this graph, it's all the same trend line. So if you're gonna blame
Well, what
everything
happened- wait a minute.
hold on, let me finish my thought, then you can attack it. If you're gonna blame everything from 1970s forward, you're gonna have a tough time because the data shows that it's the identical trend since the 1940s. And if you zoom out 200 years, you get this graph, which is a U. So once you actually look
What does a
at
U
the
mean?
whole comprehensive
There's, like, a
story,
bunch of women
your
200
narrative
years ago
falls
in
apart
work?
really quickly because
What is that?
nothing
What?
remarkable happened in the 1970s except for one thing, and I'm curious if you know what actually happened in the 1970s.
Well, instead of playing Pop Quiz Kyla, first
Good
of
one.
all, here's
That is
here's
good
my
one. That's funny.
So good.
it's just your typical debate move.
I just want to be clear.
Did-
If you don't
what
know
do you
words,
think happened to this? What
I'll
do you
let you
think
finish,
about
sorry.
this? What happened here? Okay,
I just want to be very clear before
I
we get
thought
to
we
the
were
I'm
gonna
sorry.
take turns.
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was pretty funny though. Pop quiz Kyle is kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie. That was kind of funny.
I'm not the dexterous sort.
What? Oh, it requires dexterity. Cringe, dude. That was funny. I'm sorry. That was really funny. W, Rachel. Pop quiz Kyla.
if we're
going
going to get
back
to the
and forth.
personal insults, I'm just going to quickly respond.
I didn't insult you. I just pointed
Pop
out that
quiz
you're
Kyla.
Pop quiz Kyla is not an insult. That's literally describing what you're doing in a funny way.
strategy
A
is to
compliment.
pop.
That's not, it doesn't need to be a compliment or an insult. It's a literal attribute. It's attributing to what you're doing. Like if some guy's screaming, I go, screaming Tom. Is that derogatory? Or is that just describing what he's doing? Like, what?
Or
Quiz your
compliment.
opponent. It's something you do in every debate.
So thank you. The front loading of saying my opponent Kyla will just happen to know way more
When
technological
you're done being offended,
information
I'll
and
respond
knowledge
to the
than
actual
me.
point.
I mean,
know
I'll
you
take
wanted
it.
to have a girl debate, but I would like
This
to
is
stick
literal
No, you
a girl
said the
debate.
boy debate.
It's
So
literally a
here we
girl
are,
debate.
baby girl. You want the boy debate? We're here.
Yeah, we're doing it. What happened?
What? This is
what happened in
rhetorical
the
nonsense.
1970s?
Shut up.
What
Again, that's
happened?
so magical.
What happened in the
after World War
1970s?
II?
What
To
happened
all
after
those
World
women
War II?
who went to work.
What about
What
ism?
did they do?
It
did
went
they go
down-
back home?
5%.
Yes, they did.
Well,
they went back home.
5%, and then look, the same line of best fit from before World War II. Because you know what made women go back into workplace? Access to new technologies that made it easier to go back to the workplace.
Of course,
That's what made
I
them go
already.
back.
You
She said
haven't
that,
heard
though.
me say this the 3 times I've heard it. Industrialization and technology allowed for this. Yes, obviously.
She noted
that
that.
Throw it
doesn't
at the feet of
address my
feminism.
point. That doesn't address the point of what you're going to do about the demographic cliff we're about to fall off of.
We can
Do
get
you
there.
understand how you can possibly have
This is a
feminism in
crazy
a
pivot.
world? If you're going to keep
the heck?
interrupting
Did I
me,
fall?
I'll write
I'll
it
just
down.
ask for time.
I'll ask my question after
Because
you're done.
if I interrupt you, it's a big problem. But apparently, I can't speak. I need to participate in order for this to be a conversation, Kyla.
Ideally, yeah.
So
when you monologue for 5 minutes straight, yeah. Typically, I need
When
you
is
to-
she
of
monologuing
this-
for 5 minutes?
We don't
She's
have to
literally
spend
having a
40
conversation with
minutes
you.
on what happened in this decade or why women worked. The
You
point of
certainly don't want to.
Again,
Yes.
the point of everything we're
Hard for your
talking about
narrative.
here is that. Yes, thanks, James. Nothing
Paste.
you're saying addresses the fact that we are about to have a collapse of our first world standard of living.
And since I think Kyla has a Christian worldview, I put that in air quotes, she would say that is bad. That our society is going to fall off a cliff. I think she would say that's bad, but I don't know.
This economy in the West, and it's ubiquitous across all Western nations. In fact, it's so congruent across all of them that it's kind of crazy. Like Statistics Canada has the same GDP numbers that the United States has, that Australia has, that Western Europe has, which is when you push women to go to college and have careers and have their own money and be financially independent, they listen and they do that. And they say, if that's what's expected, I'm not going to have kids. Now, again, we can go back and prove this is what happened in Russia, and it didn't matter how many pro-natalist campaigns
like
they
a
had.
Zyra.
Women said, if I got to
It's
work
like a Zyra W.
full-time, I can't have 3 or 4 kids. It doesn't work. You look at South Korea, same thing. They don't have communism. They don't have pronatalism. It's a capitalist Western-style economy, and they can't even reproduce the Korean woman.
Okay,
It's
True.
a serious problem.
That's a very
that
serious problem in
arguing over
Korea.
the gold standard or the 70s or what, or women should have choices. First of all, they've always had choices. Second of all,
just less.
if you don't address this problem, you can kiss feminism goodbye. You won't have it anymore. It won't exist.
There's this really famous, actually, you introduced me to this researcher, Joseph Miller, because you cite him a few times. There's a great conversation that the anti-suffragettes had where they insisted that, oh, by God, if the feminists, if all this happens, the world is going to collapse. People have been insisting that the world is going to collapse in the next 10 years. I mean, they're like climate people as well. We're insisting that we were going to die in the next 10 years as well. It's just fear-mongering that's not typically based in reality. Now, I know you want to run away from counter.
Okay, but how is the thing? Okay, wait. Maybe I'm dumb, but how is the birth thing, the birth charts, not an actual indicator of like societal collapse in like a few generations if they're not replenishing their own people? Like genuinely, I don't understand how that's the one thing I don't understand. Like, please explain that to me. How it's not just fear mongering. It's just data being like reflecting reality. Do we have counterexamples of, hey, they thought they were going to fall off a cliff, but they didn't? Do we have like examples of that actually happening and like just like the data just not being correct? Or like our hypothesis being incorrect with data that the generations aren't going to replenish their own society? Is that, am I unfamiliar with that study?
Information that is disconfirming of your narrative, but you still need to deal with the Gulf states, right? Qatar having declining birth rate. It's not feminism.
Is
it's
that a first world
modernization.
country you want to live in?
No, I want to live here, which has feminism and a booming GDP and like one of the best countries on the earth. That's why I'm here.
Well, what are we going to do? Yeah, it's great. It's great right now, but your field of psychology that you got your degree in is so oversaturated. We have, and it's almost all women. It's like
There's
88% women.
Not going to deal with the Gulfs, though.
There's
We're just going to
not-
run from that one.
there's
I'll just come
not
back to it.
enough-
It's fine. I'll write it down.
You have to hear.
I'll write it down.
Just-
It's
she
okay,
just
James. I'll write it
steamrolled.
down.
You have to be able to hear- you have-
Adderall. It doesn't
that was a little bit
It
bad
doesn't
on.
address the problem that you
was a
have,
little bit
which
bad
is
on.
the
Red Bull, though.
paradox of pushing women into work and telling them to be career women like you, and then they don't have children. How are you going to perpetuate the next generation? Do you realize that the complex systems first world economies rely on can only suffer about a 5% loss of skilled male workers? And right now in this country and all across the West, we have all of the Gen X and Boomer men who know how to run complex water sewage treatment centers, keep the power grid up and running. Like, these are highly skilled things. You can't just get someone from Pakistan, put them in a 6-week course or whatever, and make them a power lineman. You can't do that. These men are not replaceable. We have to start having babies, or you're going to have short-term boom. That's what we've got now, at the expense of long-term stability. And it's not fear-mongering, it's math. The World
true.
Health Organization, the UN, and Elon Musk talk about it all the time. Like, hey, we're already seeing supply chain shortages. We're already seeing problems in keeping up the infrastructure. Trump ran on the fact that most Western nations, like including the US, have shit infrastructure. We have water lines in LA that are 100 years old, blowing up all over the place. What, 6 or 7 of them? In the
Six,
last
seven,
2
six,
weeks?
seven,
Okay,
six,
we
seven.
have to do like
We're
a
not
timer at this
replacing
point. I don't even.
So
She is on a
if
monologue,
you
I'm not
want
gonna lie.
a
Talk to you.
demographic
And if we
clip
want to
or
talk to each
none of
other,
this
we have to go
matters.
point by point. Like, if you
This is a
monologue
monologue,
at
I'm
me
not gonna lie.
for 5 minutes
I will give you-
straight
I will
with
grant her that.
multiple points, they're all valid points, and I want to talk to you about
I
I will
just
grant
have
her
one
that.
question.
I-
How are
I-
you going to solve the birth rate crisis?
Answer mine first. How
There's
do we do
no
that?
future without
How
more
do you
people.
how do you reconcile the fact that you're claiming in the 1970s feminism infused a bunch of women to the workplace, but we actually see the largest
Okay, I'll
boom
just
of women?
grant
Hold
it.
on, I'm not done.
I'll just
Rachel.
grant
I'm not
it.
done.
It
the
doesn't even
largest
matter for
boom,
my argument.
the largest boom of women entering the workplace is right before the golden age of capitalism in America. Right? That's what we see when the American currency becomes the gold world reserve currency. So if you want to blame it at the 1970s, my question to you again is,
Wouldn't it be
what
sh-
actually magically
isn't the claim it
happened?
started there?
Because based on all of the actual data, nothing transformative happened. Manufacturing was starting to die by the 1950s, right? We have the Triffin dilemma, which is a much better understanding of, if you don't know the word, just ask, just saying, okay? The Triffin dilemma is a
don't know
huge
what that
issue
is.
that causes massive trade deficits for America, and it causes an issue where people are always going to want to invest in America because, frankly, we're the best. We're the best at everything. So again, if you're going to say it's the 1970s,
I didn't. That's a straw
what-
man.
It's
My
not a straw
argument-
man to say
yes.
that you said the 1970s is when this
Finish,
took off, the she economy
and I'll
happened.
tell you, no.
It's not a
That
straw
was
man.
not in any way a pillar or linchpin of my argument.
So it's the 1950s?
No, birth rates have declined since industrialization.
You're
Since
right, like the 18...
It accelerated.
Wait,
It
isn't that like the 1870s?
I have already.
Maybe you mean those 70s.
Okay, when she's done, then I'll talk.
All right.
Okay.
I do want to make sure there's not too much interrupting. So if you
Let's
want
do a
chance-
game. We both talk for 2 minutes at a time. We'll have timers.
That's
How about that?
so cringe.
So condescending.
I appreciate that, but
Keyboard
I'm
warriors.
okay with keeping it organic as long as there's not too much interrupting.
Mrs. Turner, is it my turn to
Well,
speak? Can I talk, teacher, please?
Because you're the
Dude,
only
this
person
is so
actually
cringe.
being sane right now. If she talks for 7 minutes straight with multiple points,
Just do 2 minutes. It's fine. I have
well, sure.
one-
I just
Do
want to
2
let's go
minutes.
point by point.
All right, you guys agree on that? That's progress. All right. You guys
Also,
are both
you're
okay
welcome-
with 2
you're
minutes.
welcome to interrupt
I'm
me, like, when
setting
you
the
need to.
timer. Give me 1 second. And
All right, we're
Rachel,
doing
you want
2
to go
minutes.
first?
Sure.
Okay.
So the whole you're totally fighting a straw man. You completely made up this idea that my whole argument rests on something fundamental changing in the 70s. I'll just grant everything you said. Agrippa's trilemma, whatever you want.
Good one.
Birth rates have been on the decline since
Okay, that was funny, 'cause that's
industrialization.
what
I
she
didn't
says.
say that no women ever worked before the 70s. I said that's the point where it really accelerated and took off and became mainstream, totally socially acceptable, the norm. Now, if you're a stay-at-home mom, that's the weird, creepy thing. That's when that changed. Doesn't matter. It started in the 1800s with industrialization, urbanization, and women going to work. Yes, that's when the birth rates began to decline. And the sexual liberation stuff, whether it's no-fault divorce, birth control pills, abortion, the overall thing and the only thing that matters in this argument is what are we going to do about demographics? Because it doesn't matter what they're doing in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't matter when the gold standard happened. It doesn't matter when or how women got into the workforce. We are now in a position where all Western nations are in the exact same boat, that when you shove all the women into the workforce and tell them this is what you need to be doing and focusing on, and you need a 2-income household now to survive, no one has babies. Do you think that that's not going to be a problem?
I think that we absolutely
Kick
need
it
to
over to
incentivize.
Kyla. Just to be clear, I'm going to give you full 2 minutes. If you want to use all of it, you can. Otherwise, you can kick it back to her when you want
Here's
to.
what I'll say. Let's just talk. If I start listing off like a bunch of points, just interrupt me. It's pretty simple.
No,
I don't know,
you
guys.
already-
I know conversations are hard for like the autism in the room, but that's how they
The
are.
autism in the room is crazy.
It was your idea to do 2 minutes.
It
Let's
was
give this a
sardonic.
try.
Sure, I'll take 2 minutes precisely. Sure, we can do that. It's just gonna be a terrible conversation.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, Rachel took 1:40 or so, and then she let you go for your 2 minutes. If you want to use a minute,
I want 10 seconds. Okay?
Dang,
Oh,
10
I am so
seconds.
fast.
all right, but I'm
It's
going
the
to
Red
kick it
Bull.
over to Rachel to use 2 minutes.
You just said industrialization is when women started going to work. That's false. Industrialization is when women stopped going to work. That's when women workforce participation declined in the 1800s.
What? Okay, so
Hard for your narrative.
it's no. When you talk about women working, nobody thinks that working on your family farm or in your family business with your husband and your dad and everyone, nobody thinks, when we say women going to work, we're talking about dad leaves the house in the morning and goes to his place of business, mom leaves her house in the morning, goes to her place of business, and the kids get sent to daycare or public school.
Yeah.
That's new. That's post-industrial. Nobody thinks that agrarian pre-industrial society where you're working the farmstead with your husband is women going to work. They were having 7
True.
babies on average before industrialization per woman. That was fine. Even post-industrialization could have been possibly sustainable had we not introduced sexual liberation, sending women to college, delaying the first birth until you're 31. That is doom. It's demographic doom, and you don't have a way out of it, and you don't have an answer for it, which is why you want to talk about anything else.
Speaking
Fair.
of wanting to talk about anything else, still haven't gotten an answer to the 1970s question, which again,
I granted it.
You can laugh.
I granted it.
It is a hinge point of your narrative.
It's not.
It
I
is.
granted it.
I
You're
asked you when.
completely
I
right.
asked you
You're
when.
completely
Hold on,
right about
hold
the
on one sec.
70s.
I'm
just
hold
going
on, hold
to grant
on.
the
All
you
right,
get the
order,
whole
order in
the
the crowd.
full point for you. Now,
All
what
right,
are you going to
folks,
do about
I need you
demographics?
to, just so the speakers can be heard, I do need you to keep it quiet in the audience.
The guys are too riled
Is
up. Chill, guys.
Not so weird. You have 2 minutes if you want to use it.
Sure.
Otherwise, we kick it back to Rachel for 2 minutes.
No, I'll use my 2 minutes.
Okay.
You're based?
So the Gulf states, again, so the reason why you're acting like this isn't relative at all is because it's bad for your narrative, right? For example, Japan. Do you think that Japan was like a highly feminist country?
Yes, it's highly modern and industrial. and
Post
women are-
1970s?
Women are absolutely expected to work in Japan.
Post 1970s specifically is when that feminist infusion really came out?
I don't know. I'm
Got-
not, su-
gotta
I'm not
pick a
sure.
date. If your
I'm
whole
not sure
narrative-
exact
If
your
timeline
whole-
of
Why are you
Japan.
trying to build this foundation if
Doesn't
it's
matter
your
to my
whole
argument
narrative?
at all.
If we
I
want to stick with 2
Completely
minutes.
If your
irrelevant.
entire
If you're,
narrative,
Kyla, if you're asking her questions,
she needs 2 minutes per question?
It's kind of pushing back the 2 minute to her. Do you want to go with the 2 minutes?
So if I ask her one question, now you're going to give her 2 minutes. That's
This
what we want
is
to do?
your idea, Kyla.
Rachel,
I'm not
playing this
deferred
game.
to you, and she accepted your idea of 2
I'm not
minute
playing
back
this
and
game with
forth.
you, James. This is silly. Sure, I guess every question I ask you, you get 2 minutes. That seems ridiculous, but if that's how you want to moderate things, go off.
Was it you who
Go
asked
off.
for 2 minute responses?
Sardonically, yes.
Sardonically.
And Rachel
what is that
deferred to you
word?
and said she's okay.
No, genuinely,
with it,
what
so
is
that's
that?
what we're doing.
Okay.
If you want,
All right.
if you want, you can say, "Hey, can we do 60-second responses so it's shorter?" But you already brought up the 2 minute response
Okay,
idea.
let's talk about the 1970s since you're not going to answer the question and your narrative does hinge on it. Your argument is
Chill.
fundamentally this. In the 1970s, in fact, I believe your quote was, in the 1970s, something changed. And
Okay.
it wasn't these various economic factors that we've
That
been
was my
seeing
quote
for the
on
last
Joe
50
Hold on,
years.
we have to give her a chance. Go ahead, Kyla.
I didn't say that here, but I said that on Joe Rogan.
Correct. You also
Hold on.
said it
All
here.
right. Kyla, go
Shut
ahead,
up.
finish your point.
Dude,
Okay.
the crowd.
In the 1970s,
Calm down.
which is what you hinged it to in this conversation when I asked you what time feminism started infusing women into the workforce and the she economy began, you did say that. In the 1970s, the thing that you actually think that was magical that happened is called the Quiet Revolution. That's what you're citing.
What's that?
Claudia Golden's work, which, by the way, I chatted to her before this conversation. She loves your book, by the way. Claudia Golden discovered and coined the term the Quiet Revolution, which in the late 1970s, there was a revolution, not in an infusion of women in the workplace in the 70s. That was the same since the 40s. It's been a consistent progressive trundle up. What was different
Trundle.
is women's
League.
relationship to work. Pre
Okay.
the Quiet Revolution, work was temporary, acute, and low-skilled for women because they understood they would have to go home and take care of kids. After the 1970s, they went, I think I could get an education and get long-term career prospects. So that's what's changed.
No,
in the
wait,
19
wait. Stop her on that one. I think I can do this and raise kids, or I think I can get a a career and not raise kids and be independent girl boss. Are we saying that after the 1970s, women said I can raise 7 kids and go get a career in college and go get a career while raising 7 kids, or did she go, I can prioritize myself and not have any kids, go to college and get a career, and then just have kids later? Because if you're conceding the second point, the latter, then that's Rachel's position.
70s that you're blaming all of the economic downturn, which I agree, there's a lot of economic problems on, which is not feminism. The 1970s, the economic problems that started there is connected to the gold standard and the Triffin dilemma.
The
All right,
Triffin
we can kick it
dilemma.
back to Rachel. Both
Chat
speakers
was
have
the
been told
Triffin
by the
dilemma.
audience to shut up. So,
Based?
Bob, if you can do me a favor, come to the front. Is the next time someone does something like that, we're going to take them out of here, regardless
Based?
of which speaker they're saying it to.
Based. Dude, go James. Go James.
All right, Rachel, 2 minutes.
Are they holding up
it
a little
wouldn't
signs or
matter
something?
to me and to my argument whatsoever if Martians
Oh my
came
gosh.
down in 1910 and told the women to go join the workforce, and that's when it happened or how it happened or why. It doesn't matter to my argument one bit how, when, or why. It just matters that in every nation on planet Earth, when you send all the women into the workforce in huge numbers, they stop having kids. And what happens is what happened to Russia, what happened to China, what happened to South Korea, which is you don't have a future anymore. There is no next generation to continue on.
I'll have to disagree.
There is no future if you don't show.
I don't know. I think she's putting too much emphasis on feminism if she talks about Russia. I could be wrong with this, by the way. I could be wrong with all this. I think there's not enough. I think the major reasons why China and Russia had problems could be due to feminism and their declining birth rate and sending women into the workforce. I also think it could have been communism, the thing that killed 100+ million people. I don't know. I don't know if she's going to bring that up. I would bring that up if I was Kyla.
If you think you can continue this first world industrialized type of economy that you moved here for because you love the United States, you said we have problems. I agree. I'm not blaming like economic problems on women. I'm saying, well, it's extremely inefficient and it's basically all propped up by men's tax dollars, as I proved in my opening. But it wouldn't matter. Like, I could just grant everything you're saying. It wouldn't affect my argument whatsoever because we still have this problem, which is, do you want a future with human beings in it? Or do you want more crumble cookies and more psychologists and more interior designers at the cost of
your society,
a future
destroyed.
generation that can maintain first world infrastructure and complex systems that feminism relies on?
Gotcha.
I want you to answer that question.
Why the clap? Why clapping?
So if your theory of everything, of all these problems that you've outlined, and I agree, a lot of these are legitimate problems. If your theory of everything is to put it at the feet of feminism, as you did in your...
Hello?
So, can you take me home?
I don't know if this is where we are. I apologize. I had to go.
And complex
I'm back
systems
now.
that feminism relies on.
Gotcha.
I want you to answer that question.
Clapping. All right. So maybe am I dying? Am I dying? Okay.
So if your theory of everything, of all these problems that you've outlined, and I agree, a lot of these are legitimate problems.
Okay, we're back
If
more,
your
but
theory of
let's chill.
everything is to put it at the feet of feminism, as you did in your intro statement, I'm going to say to you...
Or do you want more crumble cookies and more
Why do that?
psychologists and more interior designers at the
my gosh, I'm
cost
dying.
of a future generation that can maintain first world infrastructure and complex systems
Wait,
that
why?
feminism relies on?
I'm, for example, that kink in your armor for that narrative, as we forgot, you're giving a statement. I'm going to say to you, I
Okay.
think things are probably a little more complex than you're giving it granted for. For example, as we've already agreed, although I think you forgot, it's not when you send women into the workforce that birth rates decline, it's education, as we've already talked about. But again, a really big kink in your armor for that narrative is that Gulf states don't have feminism, but they do have declining birth rates. And they don't typically let women broadly participate in the workforce. So what's going on in Gulf states? And the major difference is women getting education. Now, if you want to say that women getting education is feminism, I guess my question would be what your prescription is, that we just don't educate women at all. Because when you want to talk actually about economy, I would
Okay.
totally grant to you that men are the power engines of an economy in every single country. And I think that
granted
that's
that.
awesome. And I think that it's sad that men, I think, oftentimes don't get the credit that maybe you deserve for their ingenuity into the GDP engine. But the reality of economics is that what matters most for a country is that you are economically competitive against other global nations. Would you agree that the relative competitiveness is what matters when we're talking about GDP?
Okay, so I'll just grant everything you said there. Simone de Beauvoir famously said in an interview with Betty Friedan,
So she grants that GDP is so she grants that.
that if we allow women the choice, Most of them are going to want to stay home and have babies. I'm paraphrasing. Which is why she said we can't allow that. We shouldn't allow that. We should tell them that they have to go to work, which is what the CCP did. That's what the Soviets did. That's what a lot of the Asian nations have done. They've said, like China had a one-child policy because they were like, you ladies need to be working, right? What we see every time is that birth rates crash, and those governments have to correct course. All of them have had to try, and what happens is it doesn't work. You've created an economy that depends on two incomes.
I'm sorry, but are you factoring in that literal communism killed hundreds of millions, like almost all, like not all of their population, but communism is a huge effect. I don't know if feminism is the reason for that to happen. Just to be fair here.
Incomes that depends on women working, like you said. If it's the most important thing to be competitive in the global market, and these countries are having all their females work, then we got to do that too. And what I said in my opening is we're trading long-term stability for short-term gains, and it's coming back right now to bite us in the ass. So, yes, it's very complex, but how do we make babies? And what are we educating women for? Like, when I say education, I have no college degree. I went to cosmetology school, yet here I am with a best-selling book, debating on a world stage, doing all kinds of things, but I did it after raising 5 human beings that are going to go off into the future.
Okay, the
contribute.
The clapping is all right. Chill. We get it. These poggers.
So I'm not now, nor have I ever been making the case that women can't be educated. I'm self-educated. We have the internet now. We have more access to information than ever before in history. What we don't need to do is send women to a university, saddle them with an average of $60,000 in debt, expect them to start a career, and then they don't even start a family until they're 31, and it's almost too late.
Sure.
That's backwards.
So the reason why people invest in early on education is it dominantly comes from, again, capitalism and modernization, because what you do early on in life is going to have the most net returns, right? Anybody who knows anything about investment knows this, right? If you, as a young person, invest in education early and you are guaranteed a higher income, that will have net returns for your whole life longer. The reason why men and women are choosing to get married later is, frankly, because of what we've taught them with the Protestant work ethic and being good stewards of their family and their children.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's actually reflective on it being positive for the society if the average age for women having children is 31. If the Protestant work ethic, Protestant work ethic, what did she mean by that? Of stewarding your money correctly. You can still steward your money correctly and have kids young. And wouldn't the wait. Wouldn't the Protestant work ethic be man goes to a job? Well, man and woman get married young, like let's say 18. Man goes to a job at, why is my game lagging? Cringe. Man goes to a job and cool, I just got disconnected Man goes to a job and then proceeds to allow his wife to work from home. They have children young, and then they work off of one household income, and the woman stays at home, and they raise their kids and struggle, but they save up and just struggle for those early years. But the payoff would be in the future that their kids were raised with 2 parents in the home. Dad was working, but mom stayed at home, and she was able to provide attention and education to the kids if they decide to homeschool them. Wouldn't that be the ideal Protestant work ethic? Not man goes to a 18-year-old kid graduates from high school, goes to college, an 18-year-old girl graduates and goes to college, and then they meet at 4. And then they talk and date, and then they get married at like 26, and then they work at their jobs for 5 years, and at 31 they decide to have a kid. And then their first kids, they're 31, they have their kids not even graduating high school, and they're already hitting their 40s. I don't know if that's the ideal work. I don't know if that's ideal.
super happy that you've been really successful, right? You and Andrew are world level. You've got, I think you have a massive income at this point, right? That, your story isn't everyone's story, and it can't be, because not everyone can be a best-selling author or a world-traveling debater. The reality is that a lot of women who opt for the postponing education typically never go back to it. They never actually end up achieving, and it's really, really hard, actually, to be 36, no background of education, you haven't worked in years, to try to vie for now career prospects that will be sufficient enough to fund you and your child. I agree that the dual income issue poses the biggest issue for families, and it poses a problem for men and for women. And the reason that that's happening isn't feminism at all. It's runaway inflation, right?
At all? At all is a crazy statement that Rachel should probably attack. Like, feminism has no contribution to any of the negative effects that we are facing currently today in today's society. Really? 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 I don't know about all that, brother.
It is dominantly low, it's called the K-shaped economy, right? You have people who are lower income, they have less ability to negotiate wages because it is actually more profitable for businesses to offshore manufacturing because of the Triffin dilemma. If you can build a $2 toy and you can build it in Vietnam for 50 cents, but in America, because workers are more educated and expect higher income and their dollar is worth
10
more,
seconds.
you unfortunately have to offshore it. It's more effective. That's why manufacturing left. It's not feminism.
Well, a lot of early feminists wrote a lot about how once we achieved full Marxism and communism, because feminism is, there's a capitalist side. That's what my first book was about. But the second one is about the Marxist communist side, which wanted to destroy the family so that we could have women workers and we could have communally raised children where everybody's loyalty is to the state. And nobody can pass down private property or anything like that. When you send all the women to work early and you tell them they have to go to college and they invest all of their fertile years, those feminists over 100 years ago saw that this was going to be a problem, and they said, in the future, our main obstacle is going to be biology. We're going to have to overcome biology. We're going to have transgenderism. We're going to have artificial wombs. We're going to need some way of dealing with the demographic cliff that's caused by pushing mothers out of motherhood and into the workforce, because you can't do both. Motherhood is not a nights and weekends gig that you do when you have time and you're not at work. It's a full-time job that deserves full-time attention, and there's never going to be a way around that unless you do want everybody to do the Dave Rubin thing and, just buy designer babies, and we'll just outsource wombs, we'll outsource daycare, and by the way, who's doing that? Just other women. So for you and I, if we want to have kids, our privilege of going to work means some other random woman who doesn't care about our child is now going to be raising them for 11 or 12 bucks an hour. What about her? Is that liberating and empowering for her? Is it liberating and empowering for me to spend all day at work and not see my child take their first steps? Or does it make more sense to tell women, hey, look, you can do a lot in this life. There's a lot of living after 40. But, focus on family first. Find your husband, build your family, grow together. Your husband's income will grow as your family grows. And then after that, there is a ton of stuff that you can do. There's all kinds of other options.
Starting to sound like a Marxist socialist, Rachel.
How?
So
How?
I'll be the first to grant you that the way that America has its orientation towards mothers...
Can we have better debate etiquette to not clap after someone just talks? It's cringe. It's so cringe. Hold your applause till the end, please.
Particularly within capitalism and the way that we, for example, don't give them any maternity leave. I think in many states it's 2 weeks here, which is crazy, right? There's very little tax credit incentives to make having a family more affordable for the common man, right? So there are many things that I think the government can and should do to make it so that family rearing is more affordable. The reality, though, that you're prescribing for people of the young girl who's at 19, stays home, gets married, has kids, number one, the reality is that those marriages are the most likely to dissolve. It's the highest divorce rate group is young people getting married. Second of all, the reality is that that young man, he basically will have to sacrifice, if he even wants to begin to having any amount of income to be able to afford his 5 babies, for example. The reality is that man is going to entirely sacrifice his fatherhood, right? How many men here work more than 40 hours a week already? I believe, yeah. 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 How many of you work more than 50? More than 50 hours.
That's crazy.
More than 50. You, sir, too? 60. We got an auction. 80. Okay. Yeah. Men work so much. They work so much, and your prescription is that they miss their childhood's first steps. They miss talking to their kids. They miss fatherhood because they're
I'm sorry.
attached to their GDP output to provide for their family because mom shouldn't work and shouldn't work for an economically viable option. That's ridiculous.
Is one parent missing childhood steps worse than both? Wouldn't, if the mom's working from home, give the ability to record? We have technology. We have phones. If the mom has more care of the child taking their first steps, so mom's going to record that happening and then send it to dad or call him and FaceTime him at lunch break. I'm sorry, he's not going to get to miss anything. I didn't get to miss anything with my child. I was working full time. My child's first steps, I didn't miss that. They still took steps. They still crawl. Like, my son was crawling and my daughter's crawling now. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I get to witness it. And then I get funny videos sent to me throughout my workday. Like, what do you... Yeah, I work hard and you feel... But men are biologically built for that, though. Like, if I'm not working or if I'm staying home, I feel like I'd be useless. Like, going to work is rewarding because I get to provide for my family. So I don't see that as a bad thing that the wife would stay home and the man would go to work and work really hard hours. That's what we're built to do. We're built to provide for our wives. So this is not like a good argument. I don't understand.
Ridiculous, right? That's actually telling young men, abandon your children for the next 10 years until you've made it.
Are you crazy? All right, calm down,
I agree,
guys.
that's very bad. It's very bad for Rachel to do to men.
Calm down.
Sorry,
I
hold on.
miscarried twice,
Hold
but
on.
nice try.
Relax,
Kick him
relax.
out. Kick him
Didn't,
out.
didn't,
Rachel?
didn't stick as well as you hoped it would, hey?
Go ahead,
Kick him
Rachel.
out.
I'll give you
Yeah,
2
not-
minutes.
So-
All right, in the back, keep it down.
Are they going to be exited or just the ones that are heckling the other way? I mean, he said weird stuff about my children. It's kind of weird.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he made some comment about me not having children.
Bob, can you find him?
Listen, we
Find
don't
him
need
and
to
kick him
make
out.
any of this personal, guys.
Yeah.
Totally unnecessary.
That's
It's-
disgusting.
I
All right.
care about
Help
the
us
arguments and the
find,
worldviews.
I
folks,
miscarried, but thank you for your concern. just so you know.
help us find that person. We're gonna walk him out.
Please,
Folks,
get out of here. It's
sorry
disgusting.
about that, Kyla. I honestly, I thought it was like they were agreeing with you. I didn't hear what they said, so
You're good.
I agree with you. Yeah, folks, don't bring up people's families. And again, if it's, I want to be easygoing, so if it's like something playful and you agree or something, like I'm not gonna flip out. But if it is malevolent toward one of the speakers, and we're just gonna take you out right now. So
Please. That's
who's
disgusting.
2-minute response.
It's
Go
me.
ahead, Rachel.
So Elizabeth Warren, of all people, wrote a book called The Two-Income Trap. And there's a reason why you could still, post-industrialization and post-technological revolution, have a
hate is
janitor
crazy.
who could support a family of 6 or something like that on a single income, and now you can't. Yes, there's lots of economic factors, but the biggest one, and the one that's different than every other economic downturn throughout all of history, is that when you push, and this is, proponents of feminism actually say this. They say, oh, it's great when you send all the women and the moms to work, you get this much higher luxury standard of living, you get a higher GDP. But they'll also admit that this does create a reliance on that. So we're building sectors of the she economy around things like education. Women dominate healthcare and education over every other type of job, and then everything else is like cottage industry stuff like Etsy. Like I have an Etsy shop and I have a brownie shop. You guys see like the 5,000 different cake and cookie shops that are in every single mall now. It's like, how many of these do we need? We started offshoring all of our, manufacturing and all of that. This is all bad stuff, but it was made
Why?
possible. It was made possible by pushing all the women. Now we have all this new labor. This was what the big industrialists of the Gilded Age did. Get the women into the factories, pay them cheap labor, like you said. This was the beginning. Then you passed the income tax. Now we're taxing 2 people in the household instead of just 1. Then we passed compulsory education systems. Now you have to send your child to public school, and you have to pay the taxes for that too. So the net result of all of these things coming together and creating this new great society is the daddy is your government now. Or the government's your daddy now.
The daddy's
Sorry,
your
I
government
switched
now.
it. The government's your daddy now. And all those men who just raised their hand who work 50, 60 hours a week, how many of you would prefer your wife to go to work and your children to be raised in daycare so that you can work less?
None.
None.
Of course not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
then what was your point with
again,
that?
They prefer to be home with their kids as well. I suspect they would probably.
I'm sorry. How is that realistic at all? They're home with their kids. Where's the money coming from?
Prefer to be able to know your kid's first words. You don't want to watch your kid walk for the first time. You don't want to.
Of course you do, but you have
just
to
want
have
it
a
on
realistic
film
understanding of
footage.
reality.
Andrew worked 60, 70-hour weeks for 12 years and still was a very, integral part of the kid's life.
Well, the issue is it's not a critique of dads and saying that you guys are bad dads. I think you guys are probably excellent dads who love your kids. And in fact, you're working to provide for your kids. But this idea that mom stays home and dad works, it is denying you guys the ability to spend time with your children. You are trading it. Do you know what the number one regret of all men in hospice? Do you know what the number one regret is of all men in hospice? Not spending enough time with their kids. It is. And
Okay.
the reason why is because they are told, particularly from this side, that you're not a good enough man if you're not solely providing for your family. Even though the reality is that the corporate elites at the top have made it damn near impossible for you to do so on one income. What is upper?
I'm sorry. You were critiquing her for sounding like a communist, but now you sound like a socialist.
Upper middle class right now, I think it's like $93,000 in certain states. That's a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? A lot for one person. And the reality is you guys have almost no negotiating wage power, mostly because we're flooding things with like reduction of jobs through AI, and also because, again, of this expectation that you are paying the cost of fatherhood,
That's
so
true.
moms get motherhood. And I don't love either of these trade-offs. What I want is a situation where families can flourish, but it's not.
What does that
feminism.
mean?
It's not some simple, small thing. It's so much more complicated than that. And if we don't have the real conversations about the people pitting us against each other while they're raking it.
You sound like a socialist. I'm sorry. The big boogeyman, CEO is pitting us against each other to. It could go either way. Like the CEO is pitting us against each other to not spend enough time with our families, so capitalism bad. Or the Jews are pitting us against each other, so we don't rise up against them. So you sound like a Nazi. I don't know. She's not a Nazi. I know that. She's like a liberal, some type of liberal.
Millions and billions, trillions, I think now, at the top. We're never going to solve this issue. We're just going to keep pointing at men and pointing at women and being like, it's all each other's fault. It's like, it's not. It's like, it's bad antitrust law and a K-shaped economy that's fucking with all of us. I agree with the problems you outline. It's not good. It is a problem, but it's not feminism.
Okay, she gets claps for that. She thinks that government policy and complex issues such as probably monetary policy, states' laws, federal laws, corporate tax cuts, and maternity leave things and all that jazz is bad, or like too complicated to actually be deduced just to feminism bad, I guess.
All right.
Your
so
argument is
you might
just
remember in my
complex,
opening how I said that
complexity.
1/3 of all American men are not in the workforce. It's a historic low male participation rate. Do you know why? It's not just automation. It's that most of these men have no prospect of marriage or family that they can see. And so they don't see any point. And they're going to stay at home and live in mom's basement and play video games where they
incel
can at least
losers.
pretend to be winning the game of life. Men need challenge They
True,
need to be able
true.
to go out into the world and overcome and become
I'm
who they
I'm
are.
playing a
That's
video
what
game
being
right
a
now.
man is. And when you send all the women to work and tell them, don't get married, that's dangerous, you'll get abused, which, by the way, is a total myth and a complete lie.
Based.
All we did with no-fault divorce was shift the pool of abuse from married women to women living with their boyfriend. You are 40% more likely to be abused in a cohabitative relationship than you are if you're a married woman. And what has happened is
Interesting.
there's no true solutions. This pie in the sky, like, oh, we'll just have UBI and socialism, and then everyone can stay home with the kids, and everybody can just work part-time. Again, if you value this first world, like, high standard of living, that's not going to happen without the men that go out there and make it happen. And everything you enjoy about this first world standard of living was built by men who were willing to risk death to get the girl and have the family and go out there and risk something and build great things that took multiple generations to build for their future, for their children. And if you're not going to give them children and you're not going to marry them, they have no incentive to do that.
True.
That's where the problem is. And you still haven't
That's
addressed
facts. Dude, I hate this. I'm not even trying to be like just annoying with it,
Sure.
but the clapping
So,
after every 2-minute
Lots
dialogue
to
is
tackle there.
cancer.
1/3 of men are not in the workplace anymore. Isn't the GDP still going up? So if men are the most important for that and they're the highest output and women
GDP
are
go
filling in
up.
all those spots, why is our GDP still increasing while men's workplace participation is decreasing? Is that maybe because women are able to also be efficient in the workplace potentially and accommodate for some of these things?
accommodate for electrical
the 2 minutes
engineers
anymore.
and nuclear
No,
engineers, or
there's
what?
a lag. There's
If
a
you-
lag with
I
birth
mean-
rate too.
I'll defer to you, Rachel, because
Sure. Well, I'll just answer this one quickly. It's something that a lot of people don't understand about demographics. You can have below replacement rates for quite a long time before you all of a sudden hit. That's why they call it a cliff, because it'll look like, oh, and this is why people say, oh, we're actually overpopulated. There's too many people, and the population is still growing. It's an actual delayed thing where it keeps growing, and then all of a sudden it goes bam, and it hits like this low. And again, I have graphs on my phone I wasn't able to put on there, but if you look at Russia, South Korea, China, places that have tried this, that's exactly what you see with their birth rate. It'll go up, 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 and then it'll sharp downturn, and then they try to get it back up, and it never recovers. So it's like a snowball effect. So yes, GDP is still going up for now. We have maybe 30 to 50 years before we hit serious trouble that
Critical
we might not
levels.
recover from for like many generations.
Maybe. I'm sure you don't have a single source for that claim.
I
but that's
just
fine.
said, look at South Korea, look at China, look at Russia.
Well, that would be
They
great if
have
you would
not
tackle the
recovered.
Gulf states. But again, a really big problem with your narrative
Gulf
that you're
states are
pushing here,
behind us,
a big
though.
problem with the narratives that you're pushing here is that the Gulf states are not letting women participate by and large. They are getting increasingly educated, and yet their birth rate is still declining.
Yeah,
So
they're
women
like
not
70
taking all
years
these jobs.
behind us.
I do
And their
wanna-
GDP is booming and growing because, to be honest,
Because they're 70 years
I do-
behind us.
They're also oil states. They have rich natural resources. That could also factor into how rich they are and how they're also smaller countries.
They'll
it's-
have
I
this
do wanna-
problem.
I will tell you why
I do
it's
wanna-
booming. The reason why it's booming is because rather than allowing women to participate in the workforce at all in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait, what they do is mass migration. They bring in a whole bunch of people, particularly from like Trinidad and Tobago. They bring in all of these low-wage workers that they treat as second-class citizens to prop up their economy so
That's
that they can
true.
keep doing these things. So if you want to get women out of the workforce, you are going to have to fill it with something else, and it's not just going to be just men. The reality is, especially if it's a 50-year problem, you're creating an acute crisis where you will absolutely need to just bring in way more mass migration to replace all of this. But that's just the reality of what you're prescribing for people, right? So again, birth rate going down, I agree. Not great. We should probably try to fix that. But the conversation is about feminism, and you keep insisting it's feminism's fault. But again, the Gulf states easily demonstrate that it's not. Nobody looks at Kuwait and Qatar and goes, wow, the bastion of feminism. Nobody thinks that, obviously. So your narrative runs into immediately counter-competing information. You talked about manufacturing. Again, manufacturing didn't get crushed because of women's push into the workforce. It got crushed by the Triffin dilemma. The U.S. has massive trade deficits. Everyone knows this. So in this situation, when the U.S. dollar is the global currency, Everyone wants to bring business here because it's like the hot spot. It's the best place to be, and the American dollar goes far. Manufacturing gets crushed because American workers want higher wages because our cost of living is higher, because everyone's bringing their business here and everyone's infusing cash all the time. You have to deal with the real economic issues that are causing the issue, not just blame feminism.
Okay.
Rachel,
Oh my
You
gosh,
got 2
I'm gonna
minutes as
keep
well?
harping on this stupid I'm gonna keep harping on this. I hate this.
I'll try
Stop.
this one more time.
Stop,
I'm not
James.
blaming
Please
every
stop them
economic
from
problem
clapping.
on feminism.
It's
I'm
cancer,
blaming
bro.
one economic
It's
problem,
literal
the only one that
AIDS to my
matters,
ears.
which is demographics.
Gulf states.
There's a lot of different. Yeah, there.
Why does
they
she keep
still
harping
have
on these
above
Gulf
replacement
states?
because all the women
They
aren't
don't.
working.
They don't. They are under replacement.
I do it the same way that
They are
Rachel didn't interrupt you on the
behind
last
us.
one. I want to give her the same.
The whole world is going this way. So all the countries that are still above replacement, which is only a handful, are trending down. And when those people, so you said immigrants, you're right. Saudi Arabia imports their entire workforce. We're trying to do that in the West. And what happens? Number one, all the places we're trying to bring immigrants from are now getting below
Destroyed.
replacement as well. So you're running out of other people to bring over. But two, when you bring those people over from those cultures where there's no feminism into the West, within one generation, their birth rate drops to as low as the native population in the West. So you bring someone over from Pakistan where the birth rate is still like one of the highest in the world. You bring them to the UK where there's feminism. You send their daughters to college and send their daughters to the workforce. They also only have 1.5 children per woman. So no, my claim, you're strawmanning me again. My claim is not every economic problem is caused by feminism. Of course not. But the one that is caused by feminism will be the only one that matters, because if there's no people, there's no future. And you still haven't told me how you're going to combat that. How are you going to have your first world feminist utopia where the men and the women both work part-time, everyone gets to stay home, however we're going to work that, everybody gets to follow their dreams and do what they
I
want?
think that's called a straw man.
How do we get to do that?
That's kind of
with
not a
bel-
straw man, because that's basically what you said. You said you were talking about, oh, the dad and the mom need to stay home to see their kids walk or whatever. If they're gonna do that, are they gonna have part-time jobs or full-time jobs? Can they do that with a full-time job? You didn't say that. So she's going off the assumption that they would have part-time jobs, which is, I would understand that assumption to be correct, because that makes the most sense to me. I don't understand how you would have a full-time job and then you assume that everyone's home and doing their thing. So I don't think that's a straw man. I unironically don't. I think that's a pretty accurate representation of her argument and an attack of it. So I don't see. Maybe you can clarify your position so you can better understand what you guys are talking about, but I don't know. Let's see.
low replacement birth rates.
Yeah, we
if
need to solve
women
birth
are
rates.
Hold on one
working, they're
second.
not going to have babies, and that's the only part of my argument that matters.
Sure, yeah, I'm tackling. So I can
Taking it
repeat
back
for
over
you.
to Kyla for 2 minutes.
I've responded to this multiple times, which again, declining birth rate is not feminism. It is modernization. This is why Saudi Arabia, as it modernizes, has a decline, which, by the way, is below replacement. Saudi Arabia's is like 1.7 right now. So no, they're not replacing themselves. Birth rate decline is because as you modernize and give people more education, they choose to postpone marriage and they have less children as a result of it. It's really that simple, but that's not feminism. That is actually education, that's capitalism, and it's kind of the Protestant work ethic, because if there's any system that tells you delay gratification, hustle and work hard, make sure you're a steward of the future, it's probably something like a capitalist system with economic incentive to grow, and a Protestant work ethic that says work, work, work. That's what you're actually contending with here. Does feminism have impacts on certain things? Yeah, I think it's made women particularly significantly more choosy in like their partners, for example. But if you look at these
But if they're more choosy with their partners and that ultimately leads to them not having babies, then that contributes to Rachel's point.
college women, for example, they're the group getting married more than anyone else since 2010. They are the highest population to get married. Their marriages last longer. They have a divorce rate that's way lower than everyone else, by the way. Their children are more successful. Their children contribute to the economy significantly more. I'd love to get those ladies having children more too. Let's invest in more technologies to kind of help them increase their window of IVF, but I'm sure you're opposed to that, right? There's all sorts. Let's get tax credits. Yeah, let's laugh at it. You guys want to solve the birth rate problem unless you actually have solutions that are about modernization, because your actual enemy here today isn't feminism, it's modernization, and we're never going back to monkey, so you may as well give up on that one.
We're never going back to monkey, so you may as well give up on that one. That's a pretty banger line. We're never going back to monkey. Base, so true.
Okay, so first of all, you said it's a capitalism problem along with a modernization problem. That doesn't explain how communist China and communist Russia had this happen to them first before any capitalist nation. Because in communism, it was, yeah, have the babies, but mainly go to work because we need to fill the factories and everybody needs to be a proletariat worker, right? They experienced this before capitalist countries did, and to the biggest degree. So it can't just be capitalism. Second of all, telling women to wait to have children because IVF will be there, people who say that haven't looked into IVF and how abysmal the failure rate is. First of all, it's massively expensive, and even if you completely subsidized it like they do in Israel, it's horrific to put women through. Have you ever had to inject yourself with a crap ton of hormones and go through all the things that you have to go through for IVF? It's miserable.
Yes.
And if you wait until you're 40, it has a less than 10% success rate. About the same as conceiving naturally. It doesn't work. So telling women to wait for IVF is cruel and unusual punishment. It's a horrible idea.
I think that's called a straw man.
How is that called a straw man?
That's a great,
Wait. Stop the clapping. It's cringe. How is that a straw man? She literally addressed your argument. Your argument was modernization is actually the problem, not feminism. And you need to offer solutions to combat the declining birth rate, and they need to be modernized. And you recommended IVF. And then Rachel just dismantled the argument for IVF. How is that a straw man? How is that a straw man, unironically?
Yeah,
Am I dumb? Let me see.
What did you call that? I think we call that a straw man, because yeah, of course my solution that I've outlined isn't just wait for IVF. In fact, one of the things that I think most importantly has to happen is a college level radical reformation, right? The idea that to just like work in mid-level HR, you need a bachelor's degree is fucking crazy. I'm sorry. There's no world that you need to be like Aristotle and, you know, back of the day said that doesn't matter. What you need is more technical schools so that people can expedite, get into the careers that they actually want, that are economical, that are pushing our GDP. All these fluffy industries, by the way, are what makes our country dominate the world. So careful what you insult there, okay? These fluffy tech jobs, by the way, sitting there, what's more like fluffy and soy than sitting and like working on a computer? I don't know. I feel like men should be sweating, right? By your mantra.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't understand the way she argues. It's so weird. I literally don't understand it. It's unironically so odd to me. Just because you work at a desk job doesn't mean you're... I mean, it depends on what the desk job is, and like, there's so many... Like, yeah, an accountant works at a desk job, but he does amazing, super complex things all day with numbers and balance sheets and all of that, but like, I'm not going to call him soy. That's stupid. I'm not going to call a software engineer soy for developing programs that could innovate AI in a better way to help solve blood transfusion difficulties that cut the time in half for a blood test to be done by, you know, 60%, and allowing people's lives to be saved through the expedited speed of a blood test being performed and results getting back to the other person so their lives get saved. I'm not going to call that soy. I don't understand her argument. Are you trying to attack people who work a desk job? Just because Rachel said, hey, we need people who actually know how to do stuff physically as well as educated jobs? Like, I don't... What are you talking about? What are you literally talking about?
I love men sitting on computers. Okay, you guys go off, kings. What you actually need to talk about here is a radical reformation of the education system, which if you want to get on
I don't
my
disagree with
leftist
that.
craziness, join me over here, okay? I'm down for it. If you want to talk about women getting maternity leave and dads getting pat leave and it being required by the company to pay for it and not the government, I'm all down for it. I want moms to stay home for like a year. I want dads to stay home for at least
That's crazy. A year, because Canada does that. At least 6 months.
6 months to a year.
Based. Honestly, based. But I don't know the repercussions of that. Unironically, I don't know the repercussions of that one. Because, like, it sounds nice, but bro, I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Year. It's tradable between the two. I think that's awesome. Norway does it, and it's fucking awesome, by the way. Also, you want
Yeah, but what's Norway's population and like median income household compared to America? I just don't know if it's like literally possible in America with all the companies we have. So, I mean, I don't know if that it could I don't know. I think Norway has a luxury because they have such a smaller population.
know before you laugh about it the childhood outcomes of children whose parents get mat and pat leave, you might want to guess it's really fucking good. Yeah, they're really successful children. So I want to deal with the birth rate issue just as much as you do by radicalizing the speed of getting people from education into it. I think the tax that we put on the young in America is insane. I want boomers to stop just gobbling up all the wealth at the top and then holding on to their assets so that it's not there for anybody else. And I think the moment you make life affordable, so it's not $45,000 to have a baby, suddenly people want to have kids a lot more. That's going to be my guess.
Fair point. I think she has a really, that's a like probably one of the strongest points she's pointed out as a reformation of the technical schools of not having to get a bachelor's degree to do certain jobs, or like for companies to look for you to get a bachelor's degree to like go into an HR position. I think that's a really, really, really good point. That if you not just have plumbers and electricians as technical schools, but as technical schools, but have like HR personnel as a degree, or a degree you can get from a technical school, that would probably cut costs in half and then enable you for getting a job quicker. I mean, that's pretty solid. That's a pretty good idea. I don't know how you would implement that, or like how you would change that, but I mean, poggers.
Yeah, so this is a math problem, which is why I started my opening with all those infographics for you, because you cannot subsidize your way out of this problem.
Like
in
I
order
said,
to be able to
got
have enough,
private, but okay.
We're not Norway. This is a very large country. And
Well, I said private institutions would cover it. Well, you at least deal with what I'm saying. Or you could strawman. That's fine. We're doing strawman hour now. Go ahead.
You can't subsidize your way out of this. You can't just, we'll just pay for people to be able to be parents. We'll just give them infinite time off so they can spend more time. I already explained this is a math problem. When you have 1/3 of men in the country not even participating in the workforce, your social safety nets are already about to collapse. You cannot add paid family leave and have everybody working a part-time job and subsidize college for everyone. This is what started the problem. The smart countries that are going to still be here and are going to be dominating in the future, I would wager, are the ones who are going to prioritize producing actual goods, including things like food, their own power. They will have energy independence. That's all male-dominated industries. The smart countries are going to say, hey, ladies, here's some incentive for you to stay out of the workforce early on in life. Have a family. We're going to make women staying home and raising their own children the affordable thing, not some kind of weird government subsidy where mommy and daddy both work, but you get a bunch of government subsidized time off for like the first year or two of your child's life. I don't know if you know this, but they live longer than a year or two. They still need you when they get older. So
My
No,
died
but
young.
it would be a
unfortunately.
lot smarter rather than to just double down on all the shit that has caused all the problems to say, maybe this was the wrong approach and maybe looking into the future, we should prioritize long-term stability and make families independent of the government rather than continue
10
to double
seconds.
down on government's your daddy policies.
Gotcha. So speaking of fluffy dream worlds, oh my goodness. Honestly, Rachel, I want to
The
live in your fan
clapping is killing
fiction
me.
utopia too. It sounds fucking awesome. How are you going to do that though? Because it seems like, you know, if you want your economy to be successful and booming, it seems like the countries who are best at it went, well, we definitely want all people who are best at human capital to be in the spaces that they're most efficient at. It seems like, we've done things like we've tried to have comparative advantages. So we go, why have one woman at home teach 2 kids when that same woman who's really talented teacher can teach 15 kids, and that other woman who is now not teaching her kids because another woman that is wonderful and that we've regularly and we trust is teaching her children, and that woman can go and do something else successful in whatever way that she would be. Maybe it's making delicious brownies, which, by the way, don't knock brownies, okay? Never knock brownies until you've tried one, right? But when we're talking about
Who
the
hasn't tried
affordability, if
brownies?
you're talking about the affordability crisis,
Yeah, what?
how are you
What
proposing
was
to
that
solve it? Because
comment?
I'm putting forward real answers, like, for example, tax credits. So tax credits for anything having to do with child rearing. Make anything associated, diapers, for example. Make it tax credit. That's not the taxpayer paying for it. That means you don't have to pay extra for it, right? All these things can be
Okay.
helped to make it more affordable to have a children. I'm down for that. What is your fanfic utopian dream process of economy where women aren't working and aren't getting educated, but we're maintaining a competitive global GDP? What's the system
Well,
for that?
Sure, I'll tell you. First of all, it's not women can't work, it's mothers should be. Mothers already have a job. They don't need a second job.
True.
The constant
Fair
throughout
enough.
all of human history still matters. Yes, we have modern technology now. That doesn't mean you can automate motherhood. That doesn't mean you can replace it or outsource it. We should be investing. So like I said, we have this 1/3 of American men who are not in the workforce because they don't see any reason to be. They've been told they're bad, they're toxic,
Get to
they're
work,
never going to
boys.
get a woman, and they're never going to have a future anyway.
incel
so
chuds,
just
so
play
you get to
World of
work.
Warcraft. Why not? Get on government subsidy for your ADHD and your autism, which you're all self-diagnosed with from being on TikTok all day.
So
How
true.
about
Based.
we
Get 'em.
incentivize young men who we desperately need in the trades? We need young men in the trades so bad. It's way cheaper to train them to do the trades than to send them to university. So how about instead of paying them to go to university, giving them $100,000,
you like
to
my
go get some
idea.
shitty degree?
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
you-
radical.
Yeah, kind of
You
hurt.
send them
Educational
to
reform.
tech schools to learn the trades, and then imagine how much money you can save when mom stays home. You don't have to pay for a second vehicle. You're not paying income tax from her wages. You don't have to pay daycare, which makes up 25% of the average American household's expenses, by the
Poggers.
way. You're saving like 35% just by mom staying home if dad has a great, good paying job in infrastructure and the trades, which we desperately need anyway, instead of letting Jose come across the border and do it illegally.
True.
Man, it's so
Based.
interesting, Rachel. You're so much smarter. It's really impressive. First of all, Base for taking my idea. I'm glad we're vibing over that one. Radical education reformation. We can all just get behind that one. Like, we don't even need to be mad.
Kinda
about
based.
that. And I'm with you on that one. Okay, so it's very miraculous how Rachel, in her own divine wisdom, in her own lifetime, has arrived at a economic and societal structural
Nice,
system
Victor,
that I guess nobody's ever thought of before. Like, why hasn't anyone ever tried that? Oh, wait, we fucking did. We actually did try this thing where it's actually more economic for women to stay at home. It's not, actually. The reason why women enter the workforce in almost all most competitive global GDP is because when you increase the local labor force that is highly educated, you do better in the GDP participation. Sorry, that's just a fact. That's just a reality of human capital. We had the barring mothers. We had it from the 1910s to the 1930s. There was marriage bars. And what happened is is we got into war. And we were like, oh, fuck, we kind of need them now. We bring them into war. And then all of a sudden, it's a proof of concept. Women can actually be incredibly powerful forces. They were the ones pushing the manufacturing. It is the manufacturing labor of women during the war that thrust America into the golden age of that economic boom and allowed us to negotiate to become the global reserve currency, which I know you seem to not know anything about economics because you poo-pooed at the gold standard changing, which is crazy bad economic theory, by the way. But just so it's clear, when America became the global reserve currency, that was like the game change. You want to know why you're the dominant country now? It's that. It's that thing specifically, because all of the nations got together and they were like, who do we think will be most reliable and stable and boom in the next coming future? And it was fucking America, baby. So this idea of, well, why don't we just try this? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Stop, please. The clapping just killing
New
me.
economic
Stop, please.
system that
10
nobody's ever thought of. We did, and we moved away from it because it was more efficient to do other things.
Kick it over to Rachel. 2 minutes.
So I'm not sure that
The
it
2
was
minutes
more
is cringe.
efficient. As I said, in the short term, yeah, but GDP go up.
Nope.
But at the expense of what? At the expense of what?
No,
So-
It
competitive
kind of
GDP.
literally is
I
a
said
GDP.
Well, if you're going to strawman me, do you want to talk to me or do you want to strawman me?
First of all,
It's
I think
competitive
you need,
GDP.
I think you need one of those special brownies you were talking about to bring you down from the Adderall high.
Chill. The ad homs. We don't need ad homs, bro. That's what the crowd wants. Stop feeding the crowd ad homs. It's cringe, bro. Oh, and then she's gonna clap back. And then, ooh, and then this is why modern debate sometimes is not poggers, bro. Come on.
Because you're just
Yay,
like,
drug insults.
Literally.
it's like, whoa, let's
If you want to just go to like
do-
weird
Did
drug
you have-
insults and
How
I
like,
many
do.
Red Bulls did you have?
I don't
Just
know, Rachel, can you
chill.
raise your eyebrows? Give it a try.
All right. We are.
Ever
Can
tried
we
it
chill?
We
before?
are going to. All right.
Yeah.
Can we
So this
chill?
Your
is-
Botox looks really good
These
on you,
are-
by the way.
What?
Chill.
talking
Why?
All right,
Well, I
let's
know you
do-
were both, and it looks great, by the way. Go
let's-
off, Queen. I
all right,
love
let's
it.
do a reset.
Okay.
2 minutes for Rachel. Go ahead.
Good stuff there. So,
It was funny. It was for the crowd, okay? We were giving some crowd pleasers.
yes.
Cringe.
Yes, you're a bastion of entertainment. Love it.
True.
Keep going.
That's why you brought me here.
So, again, we're trading long-term sustainability, and again, none of this matters. Oh wow, you've got a massive GDP right now. Ooh wow, there's like all of this unsustainable, goofy, fluffy women jobs that I just showed you. The reason I had to have slides was to give people the visual impact of just how much of women's empowerment is subsidized by men's actual productivity. Women own 40% of businesses in the United States and produce 6% of the revenue. How is that more efficient? How is that better for the future? How does that sustain anything?
Because small businesses
we
don't
get to
provide
have
that
that,
much
you
revenue.
guys.
I don't know what
You
you
get
wanna
to
give.
have that at the cost of not having enough babies to replace anyone, having labor shortages, massive inflation. Like, if this is working so well and it's doing so great, why do you yourself say we have so many economic problems? Now, you don't think it's because of feminism, fine. But everywhere in the world that we push mothers out of the home and into the workforce, the birth rate collapses. And that will have to be dealt with regardless of if you love having lots of psychologists and crumble cookies and Etsy ladies and whatever.
Yeah, I can tell that you only prepped this point, so I've already addressed that.
It's not that I didn't only prep this point. It's the only
second.
point
I
that
do-
matters.
Well, you're right. You prepped more,
I
and
do
then
have
I brought
to-
just confirming
all right,
evidence,
we
so you had
do-
to run
we
away
do
from your
have to kick it over to
1970s.
You still
Kyla.
haven't told me
Wait,
what
we
we're
do
gonna
have
do
to-
about
we
that.
do have
I've
to
given
kick it
you
over to
multiple
Kyla for
answers.
2
In fact,
minutes
you
as
borrowed
well.
some of them.
All right.
None of them solve the problem.
All right,
It's
I
like
need
a
to do
gripless
this.
trilemma
You guys
all
do
over
it.
again.
All right, hold on a second. We do have to.
Solve
we're
Rachel's
going back
dilemma.
to the,
Do you
we're
want
going
more
back to
drink?
the
I
2
mean,
minute,
again,
the 2 minute responses.
the one who
so,
uses a gripless
so
trilemma.
we're
You
going to
just
give
don't
Kyla
realize it.
2 minutes. Kyla, the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Okay, awesome. So again, when we talk about so why are like women-owned businesses only contributing to like 6%? I think when you look at like booming economies, the Fortune 500, I think probably contributes like at least 30, maybe 40% of the GDP in tax receipts. So the idea that like it's all these small businesses, all small businesses don't contribute that much to government tax receipts. Welcome to the government, I suppose. When we're talking about goofy, fluffy women jobs, I agree that there's like too many Etsy shops, but they're gonna die and go under anyways, right? Sure, but the reality is that these goofy, fluffy women jobs were created by corporate infrastructure because they realized things like Ford is a great example of this, right? Ford made HR in like 1910 because big companies need it. They need managers and they need people that oversee people to make sure you keep making work. So if you're so smart in all your wisdom, you have to go to the Fortune 500. You have to go to Elon Musk himself and be like, hey, those HR jobs, really silly, not good for the economy. It's not very efficient. And I'm going to probably look at you and say, I probably know more about what's good for the economy. As I said before, it's not GDP go up, and it's never been. That's always been a straw man of my argument. It's about maintaining a competitive GDP. And the reason why is if you can't fund your military and keep up with the other countries around you, they are going to stomp on you. And that has been shown in recent history. And we need to be aware of it because we have to fund these things. We have to.
Fair.
Okay. So again,
Okay. Based.
I don't know how else. It's like trying to teach force doctrine to you. It's like it just doesn't stick. You still think it's about like majorities or something goofy.
No, it's about category errors.
It's not. You
It is.
just
Right.
don't understand it. But
Nope, 2 minutes.
if you don't have women, what do we need more of? Do we need more women doing multi-level marketing, selling Lululemons and Tupperware, or do we need
She just
women
granted that
having
those
babies
jobs are
so that
cringe,
we
right?
can actually have a big military? Actually, do you remember my slide about if we didn't abort 1/3 of our babies, we'd have 45 million more people in our labor force? You don't
Yeah.
think that's a good trade-off?
Well, my
you don't
suspicion
think that might be
that
better?
slide probably didn't account
Just-
for the fact
are
that the
you-
women who would be having those children would be single mothers, which
Just
are
to be
also
clear, you were
contributing
done.
to the
No, it
welfare
does.
state that we were
It-
upset about.
it
So
accounts- so-
probably not 45 million.
It did. So if
Probably not.
if you have it's an average of $26,000 of lifetime earnings that women will lose when they have a baby that they would have otherwise aborted. That's the estimate from, I think, Guttmacher and then the U.S. Department of Labor.
I don't trust that.
If you didn't, of course, you don't trust them.
I've read your book, baby girl. I don't trust any of your
Their
citations.
government, it's the government, the Department of Labor is the U.S. government.
Remember
I'm
when
not
you said
pulling
Hypatia was
sources out
No,
of thin
just
air.
to be
BC.
sure that
That was a fun one.
If you
she
had,
wasn't, by the way.
I do
I don't
wanna-
even know what she's saying.
All right, just to
She's
be sure that we-
spurting.
Based.
I do think we're going to go back to the 2-minute
pretty calm.
segments.
I'm pretty calm.
You're not calm.
We're going to
I
go
am
back to the
calm.
2-minute
All right,
segments.
chill,
All right.
chill. I'm chill.
So
I'm
go
chill. I'm
ahead,
chill. I'm
Rachel.
chill.
We'll
I
put it
apologize.
at
That's rude.
So I'm saying
one-
once again, maybe don't kill off 1/3 of our labor force. That
True.
that would probably
Based.
help GDP.
Based. True. And then they're gonna give a clap. Oh my gosh. Literally dying of COVID. I'm about to get the clap from how many times you're clapping, bro. Actually, like cancer.
Sure, but probably making
All right,
it
2 minutes.
probably making it so that 50% of our labor force doesn't enter the workforce is also not the best comparative advantage that we can talk about. Like, I'm happy to talk to you about abortion and the problems with it and like how mothers need to be supported more in our society. I've granted you that from the beginning. That's not an assailing on my position because I'm with you that like one of the worst things that we have seen, even with like the third wave feminism, is that nobody looked at mothers and said that that thing is beloved. Nobody looked at a mother and said that that is something worth cherishing and protecting. And you can see it because of the lack of policy created so that women have options and opportunities. The reality is, do we need more of like babies and MLMs? The reality is, why not try to find a system where it's a little bit easier to do both?
You can't.
You can. We
Other
have
countries have tried it and it's failed massively. And
Really?
they've had
America's
over a
failing
century.
so much.
They've had
well, I can
over a
see-
century to
are
figure
you-
it out in
just to be
China
sure,
and Russia, and China has
Kyla, are you-
massive technology
Kyla,
and
are
they
you
can't
done with
figure
your
it out.
done with your 2 minutes, or do you? I can't tell.
I'll respond. I'll respond. It's fine. It's fine. This back and forth is totally fine with me. Yeah. So in the
But
case
you're the
of
one who
America, I would say booming
Come on.
countries that are succeeding as a result of the labor force being injected with women and basically everyone who wants to work. America is a really good example of how it is working. You know, as what my
Yes,
favorite.
she's going to bring up the timeline thing. It's working right now, but will that how are the detrimental effects of this working right now be in the future? Like what are our future repercussions for this working right now thing is? That's what Rachel's whole point has been.
My favorite feminist said, the Dow is over 50,000, right? The economy of America is growing, and it's growing consistently. Trump is doing everything in his power to slow it as much as possible. However,
Trump
it
shots.
is growing, and it is, I think, right now it's still 12 trillion over China. That comparative edge matters because for those of you who are in cybersecurity, anybody here in cybersecurity? Okay, a little bit. Yeah, you guys know that the main thing keeping us ahead of China in cybersecurity is we have a lot of fucking money because their tech is so much better, which is dangerous
Cap.
2 Americans today. It's
Cap.
not just bombs flying over and military troops walking into
sorry, that's just
China
cap.
and shooting Chinese people. It's cybersecurity. It's attacks on our systems. Just recently, the Hugging Face ChatGPT thing got out. That's what's dangerous. So what you need in a competitive GDP, and your system is saying it's not working. It is working. We just need to continue to find solutions to modernization so moms and dads can have kids too. I'm with you on finding a solution to that, but your answer is pressure women not to go into work, and we tried that. It doesn't work very well for maintaining everything that your society needs, which isn't just lots of babies, because Pakistan, tons of babies, not a great
And they're all
economy.
inbred.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Why do you want mothers with young children to be at work all day?
I want them to be able to work at home. That's a great option for them.
Working
How
home.
many of them do you think can work from home and contribute to the necessary and productive parts of the economy?
I mean, I think HR jobs are increasingly moving to remote positions. I think like 20 to 30%.
Just more HR jobs. Everybody be an HR Karen.
Again, you can
Everybody
laugh at
work
it,
in
but
HR.
take it up with Elon Musk.
Do you think Elon
Great
Musk has
economist,
an
Rachel.
HR department because of any other reason than Title IX making women be able to frivolously sue their employers for sexual harassment?
I think this is a straw man. I'll have to agree. Kyla's going to say this is a straw man. It kind of is. HR departments are kind of necessary. I can't deny that. HR is kind of necessary. You do need people making sure other people are doing your work and having... Like, HR people are just helpful. And you need helpful people in the workforce so your company can run smoothly. Like, they're like the oil for the cogs, in my opinion.
So there can be problems
He
with
would
women
get rid
in
of
the
his
workplace.
HR department tomorrow
wouldn't.
if you couldn't bring frivolous lawsuit after
Unironically, he
frivolous
wouldn't.
lawsuit that I didn't get the promotion
Unironically,
because
no.
Tommy was sleeping with Lisa instead of me or whatever nonsense. Like Title IX caused that. We
No,
did not
it started
have a
in
desperate
1910.
need for HR.
It started in 1910 with Ford because Ford realized that it had more human capital that it could manage with just its direct system. So it built HR
do you mean the same
departments. They
Ford
did it.
Foundation that created women's studies?
Yes.
Do you mean them? Oh, that's convenient, isn't it?
Well, wait, are you really trying to tell me that corporations, by the good of their heart, are making these stupid jobs that are useless, don't help their company, don't help their stakeholders, they don't maintain their fiduciary response, they just love women so much? Oh my God, every CEO out there is just like, fuck the stakeholders, boys. We got to get women in the workplace. Find them stupid jobs. I don't know, make
If
them
you could
fold
stop the meth
brownies or
prattle,
something.
I'll respond. Like
Meth
seriously,
pedal is crazy. That's a crazy line. If you could stop the meth pedal, oh my gosh, chill.
like you're going 5,000 miles an hour about absolutely nothing.
I know,
And
when
it's
you
like-
don't know anything about
it's
the
like
economy, it can be
watching a
tough when I...
person-
I mean,
Talk
on
about it, hey?
methamphetamine
All right, I do-
just
I do
spurred
have
the
to-
fuck
It's
out.
Red Bull,
All right.
first of all.
All right,
I don't do
let's-
amphetamine. It's
So
bad for my brain.
no,
There's Andrew
corporations
locked in.
wanted cheap
W.
labor,
Andrew.
and the government wanted more income tax. So
Why was
the
that
Ford
so
Foundation,
funny?
in their own papers, which I cite in my book that you say you've read, said, "Let's make women working. Let's support feminism."
Yo,
let's
that's a
They
meme. That's
literally
unironically
created
a
women's
meme.
studies departments as a vehicle to
dude,
put
that is a meme.
Marxist
Someone needs to
feminism into
60s.
universities.
clip that.
Yes, and to get women to
HR
buy
started in
in,
the 1910s.
to
So.
get women to buy into the idea that work and being a career woman is empowering and safe, and that motherhood is risky and dangerous and holds you back from whatever. You need to be liberated, but nobody ever asks from what? What were women liberated from? Because the only thing I can see that we were liberated from is intact structural families, our own children, and our own interests. Now we spend our lives working for corporations and paying income tax at the expense of our own relationships with our children, our own marriages, our own communities. Like, how much have we lost from sending women to work for Ford and Elon Musk and be in HR versus them being at home building communities, taking care of each other, the women.
Isn't Kylie gonna be like, hey, they can do both, working an HR job and work at home as an HR job, and then continue to build their families, right? Isn't that the meme?
used to all be home together.
Sure, we've
We're at-
probably lost
we're at
many
3 minutes.
things.
I want to give each of you a minute and a half. That's the last of our 3 minutes of open dialogue.
Okay, bet.
Jeez.
So your theory of everything falls apart really hard when you get any amount of disconfirming evidence, right? Manufacturing, for example, as you tried to suggest originally, was dying in the 1970s. It wasn't. It started dying in the 1950s, again, because of the Triffin dilemma. When you want to talk about economics and why people are struggling, we have to have big girl conversations and not just be mad at the other girls and what they're doing. The reality is that we did try the model after industrialization to keep women home. We barred women from workplaces, particularly married women, the women that you would like to bar from workplaces. And the reality is that America was not competing at a large level. It wasn't a superpower at the time. And there's a reason why most Fortune 500, all Fortune 500s, have invented these things. Again, a CEO's fiduciary responsibility, and since we're doing pop quiz, that means a legal responsibility is to stakeholders. Corporations aren't going out of their way to make jobs that are useless for women because they're nice and they love feminism. That doesn't even make sense. The reality of a capitalist is they're constantly thinking about their bottom line. And if HR makes their large corporation work more effectively, that's what they're going to do. This idea of Ford and the gender studies, I'll just grant you, Ford did do that in the gender studies. I don't really care. It falls apart the moment you just think about a timeline. Ford invented HR long before they were pushing gender studies.
Seconds.
So this idea that Ford just had this maniacal plan, instead of actually it was an economic supply response of needing clerical work increasingly in large corporations to make these corporations more effective, I guess take it up with every single fucking billionaire. I don't know what to tell you, Rachel.
With that, we'll kick it over to Rachel for him. It's the final
they've
segment.
both done pretty good
1.5
with
minutes
this
for
debate.
you, Rachel.
So first of all, I'm not going to be lectured on having big girl conversations by someone who hasn't accomplished even a tenth of what I've accomplished in my life. That's number one.
Andrew loves that. I don't. What's the point of a debate then? I'm sorry. What? I don't understand. I'm not going to be lectured on this. Like, what? What?
Number two, you came in
And
here.
How
wanting-
much older are you than
it's
me?
my time.
Aren't you like 20 years
my
older?
time.
I do want to give Rachel a
You
chance.
gotta shut up at some point and let me talk too.
Yeah,
You
only
came
me
in
as
All right,
here
we
wanting
do-
to have
hold on.
this friendly female conversation that was all subterfuge, that was all trickery,
It wasn't.
because you were the quickest
All right.
to insult me personally and
Nope.
and spurg out and go off on wild tangents. And I'm not going to be lectured about big girl conversations by somebody who is just over here having an absolute autism fit with her Red Bull or what. I don't even know half of what you said.
Kind of funny. It's not for a debate. It's just I'm not.
I can
But
tell.
here's the
I
problem.
digress.
You definitely
The
don't know.
future belongs to those who show
Well,
up
no.
for it. And
Okay.
we have a choice to make. We cannot have women working full-time jobs and dedicating all their lives to careerism and have them be good full-time mothers, raising the next generation of human beings above replacement level. They will continue to abort a third of every generation. They will continue to remain single and unmarried, or if they even, do have children, they're doing it single and
15
unmarried.
seconds.
This is the only question that matters. Everything else economically won't matter if this doesn't get solved.
I need more decks.
Thank you very much
Cringe.
for that closing.
Thank you, Rachel Poggers.
Special thanks to our sponsor, Maine First Project,
Make sure to go
fighting to put Mainers first.
Follow
Check
and
out
subscribe to
mainefirstproject.org.
or Modern Day Debate.
Huge thanks to Revival of the Anointed's Rule, equipping Christians to fight for biblical values through policy victories. Check out revivetheroar.org. Huge thanks to our sponsor,
Is that it?
Apologetics Arc. Check out their app today by downloading it. 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be ready to give a defense.
Facts.
I think this has been the best debate we've had on this subject. So let's keep the Q&A productive. If you will line
I don't
up
care about
on-
the Q&A. Genuinely, I don't care. I'm done. The debate was good. It did not make any type of productivity happen. I'm not going to lie. It's not productive at all. It's kind of just rhetoric and it's kind of just reviews. No disrespect to DebateCon, but I don't think anyone's minds were changed at all. I think there were enablements for agreement to happen, for sure. But I don't know if the debate nowadays isn't about making any type of concessions. It's all about your side winning 100% and the other side losing 100%, which is cringe. But in my opinion, I think a really good concession they could have had was they do need to reshape or reform the college and trade school education system to allow for HR jobs to not have to get bachelor's degrees from a prestigious university and enable them to get a trade school certification / degree for HR jobs. And I feel like that would be cool. I feel like that's a very good start to some middle ground being met and some progress being made finally. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I think the debate was overall good. I don't really appreciate the both sides that any sides just ad homs or cringe. They don't make any productivity happen during a an interlocutory period. Interlocutory? No, that's not right. During a period of intellectual verbal battle. During a debate, I don't think ad homs are productive for the conversation to progress. They're funny, but that's just kind of just for YouTube clicks, not actually changing people's minds. I don't know. Maybe some people's minds were changed by this. I couldn't tell you, but I hope. I think both parties made really good points, and I think it's definitely a discussion that should be continued, and should be, there should be some more deep dives onto the subject and seeing how we can progress in a positive manner forward. But I think a huge thing that she didn't address was the abortion thing. That was massive. I think that was also led by feminism. Feminism has killed a third of my generation. So I would have loved that to be seen addressed, but it was not addressed, and I think that was a very strong talking point for Rachel. Why am I frozen? Cringe. But yeah, I think that was a very, very, very strong talking point for Rachel. That was really good for her. That I think Kyla really kind of dropped on. But Kyla also had pretty strong talking points with the economy, the gold standard and all that stuff. She, with the argument of modernization being the main contributor to bad things happening, not feminism, and women in the workplace, and less families being created and stuff like that. But I think Rachel could have emphasized cultural impacts more. The statistics were good, but I think cultural impacts are more positive just because of what the impact of feminism has done to young men is an important factor, as well as what it has done to the mindset of women. I think the mindset of women and how they feel and what they're told regarding feminism is a very, very, very strong point for Rachel to harp on, because of the detrimental things that feminism promotes. But I don't know if she'd be like, well, that's not the feminism I support, so I'll just agree with you there and concede the point. But I don't know if that's a point enough that she should, allow for concession on. But, it was, solid, like, 7 out of 10 debate. It's not, I'm not, the type of person who, oh man, did you see what they said? I really do enjoy the battles of ideas. I really do enjoy, people actually bringing up points and those points being contested against and stuff like that. But I'm going to be double dropping an episode, because I'm going to drop a episode, God Logic's debate with Sheikh Uthman dropped, and the 1v10 for Sheikh Uthman versus 10 Christians. I'm watching that and I'm reacting to that, and it's going to drop on Monday too. So we're going to have two reaction videos on Monday. Both are going to drop 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe. Did I get anything wrong? What was your favorite part of the debate and all that good jazz? Have a great night. Goodbye. Love you. God bless.